Chapter 979. The Gloves Are Off.
Eh.
Chapter 979. The Gloves Are Off. Jian Wushuang had thought that Master Ku was only here for revenge, but now it appeared that he was also a messenger. Jian Wushuang, the temple master, specifically asked for you specifically, and this almost never happened before, Master Ku continued, so take some time to think about it. I'm sure you know how awesome the Void Temple is. After all, your senior brother is one of us. And if you join too, you'll be a master, and it won't be long before you could be an elder. Jian Wushuang was pleased, but he didn't reply. Like I said, think about it. If you decide to join us, just break this token and the Void Master will know, and he'll send someone to pick you up, Master Ku said, handing the token to Jian Wushuang. Thank you. And please tell your master that I'll think about it, Jian Wushuang replied. Will do. See you around. Master Ku left immediately after he finished. Jian Wushuang watched him walk away, and then he put away the token before he turned his gaze toward the camp of the three big countries. Many experts were there, and the most powerful three were Ape Holy Master, West Paradise Emperor, and Nand Emperor. These experts were now very disappointed. They had expected Master Ku to kill Jian Wushuang, or at least force the youth to use his full strength, but it turned out that Master Ku was unable to do any of that. Not even hurting him. Not at all. He could not kill him even when Jian just stood still and did not fight back. We've got company, Ape Holy Master said. And then it happened. Yo, experts of the three big countries. A loud voice reached their camp. It was of course Jian Wushuang's voice. He was in the void outside the royal palace. He crossed his arms and looked at them. Like I said before, you've got to give me an answer within 3 days. It's been 2. Have you thought of an answer? The three experts were obviously annoyed, but they still moved toward Jian Wushuang. They stopped when they were less than 30 meters away from him. Any of the experts could cover that distance in an instant. This kid didn't even flinch. He isn't backing off. Isn't he afraid of us at all? Ape Holy Master murmured with a frown. We've seen his defense ability. Even Master Ku couldn't hurt him. Why should he be afraid of us? West Paradise Emperor replied, even you will have trouble killing him. Ape Holy Master nodded and thought. Yes, indeed. Although I'm a Holy Master, it'll still be hard for me to kill Jian Wushuang. Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't you the three bosses of the three big countries? And the Holy Master in the middle is Ape Holy Master, Jian Wushuang said confidently. Jian Wushuang. Ape Holy Master opened his mouth. His voice was dignified. You want an answer? Why should we give one to you? Because of your achievements 1,200 years ago. Ape Holy Master asked, each word more powerful than the previous one. Wasn't that enough? Jian Wushuang smiled. Nope, not even close. Ape Holy Master shouted. Don't try to fool me. You were something 1,200 years ago, but it wasn't all you. You used some special tricks, and I'm guessing it was precisely because of that your body exploded into a blood fog. Those special tricks were hard to use for the first time. It's impossible for you to use them again. So tell me, why should I answer to you? Ape Holy Master was correct. Tang of the East could not stand against the three big countries, and if Jian Wushuang had not used those special tricks years ago, it would have been impossible for him to stop them. Jian Wushuang knew it all. You're right, I can't use those tricks anymore, Jian Wushuang said smilingly. If you still want to destroy our country, so be it, but I have to point out something. He took a deep breath and then said in a sonorous voice. You can continue attacking us, you can continue besieging our royal palace, and you can take away our 36 prefectures. We don't have the power to fight back. But as long as Tao Master Spirit's formation is in place, you can't come in, and you can't kill us all. Our top-level experts can be well protected. And as you begin to attack the royal palace, I'll leave. I'll go away to find ways to improve myself. I'm confident that within 1,000 years I can become a Tao Master, and within 10,000 I could become a Holy Master. And I'll come back for you, and when I do, you'll be the first ones I kill. I swear, I'll hunt you down no matter what. And I'll make the three big countries disappear. Time is all I got. Let's see what happens.
8.
Chapter 980. Menace from Jian Wushuang. Chapter 980. Menace from Jian Wushuang. Was he threatening them? Yes, he was. Everyone knew that. The three experts were visibly annoyed. If an average Joe with the Eternal Realm were making this threat, they would shrug it off. Nevertheless, it was not an average Joe. It was an exceptional genius of the green fire world. No one knew what he was capable of, but Master Ku's invitation sure said a lot. Even the Void Temple Master wanted to recruit him. It would be very easy for him to become a Dao Master or even a Holy Master. It was also possible that he could become someone like the Void Temple Master and Dao Yuanzi. Most importantly, his battle strength was excellent too. He was just an expert with Eternal Realm, but he managed to resist Master Ku. He would have enough powers to face off against Ape Holy Master when he became a Dao Master. Just like he had said, in 10,000 years, he would be able to come back and annihilate all the experts of the three big countries. Jian Wushuang, are you threatening me? Ape Holy Master was blue with anger. He stared at Jian and continued, You have to live another 10,000 years for everything you just said to be true. If I kill you now, none of that will happen. You're right. Jian Wushuang nodded and said, Killing me now would stop me from killing you in the future, but I'd bet big money you can't kill me now. Jian Wushuang smiled confidently. Ape Holy Master was getting angrier. Was he willing to bet big money on whether or not he could kill Jian Wushuang right there right then? No, he was not. He even had no idea if he could beat Jian Wushuang at that moment. He dared not to bet on himself killing Jian Wushuang not only because of the powers that Jian Wushuang had just showed off when fighting Master Ku, but also because of the battle 1,200 years ago. Back then, Jian Wushuang had exploded into a blood fog in the end. Normally people would die when this happened, but after 1,200 years, Jian was still alive and well, and he was even more powerful than before. This was too weird. As such, Ape Holy Master was not sure if he could kill him. What are we going to do? West Paradise Emperor and Nan Paradise Emperor asked. There's nothing we can do. He's threatening us, and I'm not sure if I can kill him. We can't bet the fate of our countries on him not becoming a Dao Master, Ape Holy Master said coldly. He believed that Jian Wushuang could definitely become a Dao Master. You mean we back off? West Paradise Emperor asked. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the three big countries this time. They were just one step away from wiping out Tang of the East. Just one step away. If they stopped now, they probably would never find another opportunity like this. We've got no other choice, Ape Holy Master sighed and said. Who'd have thought Tang of the East got such a savior at the last moment? Jian Wushuang. Ape Holy Master turned to look at Jian again. We've decided to retreat. They had no other option but to give up. They were so close. That's not good enough for me. Jian Wushuang shook his head. What else do you want? Ape Holy Master shouted, anger flickering in his eyes. They promised to give up, but Jian was still not satisfied. You're being forced by me to retreat now, but I can't be here forever. Can you promise that you won't come back when I'm gone? Jian said coldly.
What?
It was getting harder and harder for Ape Holy Master to control his anger. I want you guys to swear you won't come to attack us again for the next 100,000 years. If you say yes, I'll let this go, Jian Wushuang said. You want us to swear? It was hard for the three masters to believe what they had just heard. They were the top guys in the Gree Fire world, and now they were being forced to make a promise like this. Emperor Shao and the other experts inside the Imperial Palace nodded when they heard Jian Wushuang's words. 10,000 years was not long, but it would be long enough for Tang of the East to get itself together. They would be ready to resist the three big countries when they came back for them after 100,000 years. They believed that the three top-notch experts would not break a promise they made in front of so many witnesses. If Ape Holy Master agreed with what Jian had proposed, it would be great for Tang of the East. Ape Holy Master thought for a while and came to a conclusion. Fine, I promise, Ape Holy Master said coldly. Upon hearing that, Jian Wushuang smiled in satisfaction. The other two masters were not happy about it, but again, they had no other choice. They had to promise Jian Wushuang too. A golden-robed elder watched all this happening in front of him, while hiding himself in the shadows. Interesting, the elder said to himself and then dashed out of the shadows. Chapter 981, The Golden-Robed Elder. Chapter 981, The Golden-Robed Elder. In front of all the experts of Tang of the East and the three big countries, Ape Holy Master, West Paradise Emperor, and South Emperor made a promise. They swore that they would not attack Tang of the East within 100,000 years. We've made a promise, Jian Wushuang. Are you satisfied? Ape Holy Master was barely able to control his temper. Yes, I am, Jian smiled and said. Since you've made a promise, you should start honoring it now. Humph. Ape Holy Master snorted and then shifted his gaze toward the royal palace of Tang of the East. Emperor Shao, you got lucky this time. Enjoy it while it lasts. Ape Holy Master said, and then looked at the other two masters beside himself. Let's go. They were ready to take their departure. Nevertheless, before they could do so, you think you can walk out of here in one piece? A sonorous voice was heard. The three masters stopped. A golden-robed elder, who seemed to come out of nowhere, was standing in front of them. He had silver hair and looked nice. What was most noticeable about him was the cinnabar mole between his eyebrows. He popped out all of a sudden. The three masters were standing so close to him, but they had not noticed anything. The three masters flinched when they saw the elder. Emperor Shao, Emperor Yun, and Lung Rushuang also saw the elder as soon as he came out. Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun were thrilled to see him. They started to rush toward him immediately. They did not care that they were badly wounded. They came out of the protective formation and the royal palace. They went to kneel in front of the elder. Master? Master? The two said simultaneously. They could barely mask the happiness in their voice. Everyone present was obviously shocked, including Jian Wushuang. He turned to take a look at the elder and thought in astonishment. Master? The Emperor's master? Everybody in the Green Fire world knows who their master is. They're calling this elder master. That means this elder is Tang Emperor. He's the founder of Tang of the East and the master of Emperor Qing, Emperor Shao, Emperor Yun, and Emperor Lung. He has disappeared for many years, and now he's back. The whole royal palace was carried away by wild excitement. Experts inside the palace could not help but burst into thunderous cheers upon learning that Tang Emperor was back. After all, it was Tang Emperor, the mysterious founder of Tang of the East. He created this country and trained Emperor Qing, Emperor Shao, Emperor Yun, and Emperor Lung. He had disappeared for years. Many people, including Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun, had believed that he was dead. Beyond their expectations, he came back. Get up. Tang Emperor raised his hand, and the two emperors kneeled in front of him stood up. We'll talk later. After that, the elder diverted his eyes to Ape Holy Master, West Paradise Emperor, and South Emperor. Things sure have changed since I left. Back then, Tang of the East was the only country in this world, but now there are 4, and the 3 of you join hands to attack us. How dare you? Tang Emperor said nonchalantly. The 3 masters swallowed hard. They were very afraid of Tang Emperor. They were 100 times afraid of him than they did Jian Wushuang. What was scary about Jian Wushuang was his potential. It hadn't happened yet. It was another story for Tang Emperor. The experts in the royal palace were gloating. They stared at the 3 masters happily, who had been pretty arrogant a moment ago. Jian Wushuang just forced them away. He did not actually wreak vengeance on them. Now that Tang Emperor was here, it was a whole other story. A holy master and 2 Dao masters, you wanted to destroy us. That's hilarious. Tang Emperor scoffed at the three masters, and then he pointed a finger toward them. It might look casual, but the three masters quickly felt the power gathered on the finger. They were scared. Even Ape Holy Master, the most powerful of them, was not confident about resisting this attack. The next moment, they spitted blood and dropped to the ground. When they managed to stand up again, they looked paler than ever. He's so powerful. It's scary. The crowd was surprised. He hurt them pretty badly with just a finger, and it was obvious that he did not use his full strength.
If he did, they would be dead by now.
Jian Wuxuang, this old dude is fierce. He's much stronger than Dao Yuanzi. Even with the blood-killing plate armor, that Dao Yuanzi could never beat him. Gu Qing's voice was inside Jian Wuxuang's head. Really? Jian Wuxuang was surprised. Tang Emperor looked at the three masters. You should feel lucky that you've promised to not come back for 100,000 years. Otherwise, you'd be dead by now. Tang Emperor's cold voice was heard throughout the world. Chapter 982. Heir to Emperor Qing. Chapter 982. Heir to Emperor Qing. The powerful warriors around were all taken aback by the spectacle. And the badly hurt Ape Holy Master, the West Paradise Emperor and the South Emperor were cheering hoarsely, joyous that they were still alive. Despite their earlier hatred and anger towards Jian Wuxuang earlier, they were now grateful for him. It was only because of Jian Wuxuang that they were forced to concede a pact in public that will never again invade the Tang Empire of the East in tens of thousands of years. Then again, the Tang Emperor would have had their heads by now, if not for the willing settlement they have agreed to. Even though the Tang Emperor had alluded to the involvement of the Green Fire Palace in this skirmish, the three were certain that the Tang Emperor would have had them slain if he wished so. Hear me, you three. The Tang Emperor glared coldly at them with the keenness of a blade. You have 10 days. In these 10 days, you will withdraw all your forces from the boundaries of the Tang Empire. You will then surrender half of the treasures and wealth of your domains as indemnity of the damages you have incurred upon the empire. Surely that will hardly be an inconvenience to you three? The booming voice of the Tang Emperor rumbled across the broad expanse of the battlefield, much to the chagrin of the warrior horde of the three great countries. Retreating from the borders of the Tang Empire in 10 days was hardly an impossible feat, more so, now that the Tang Emperor had returned. Then again, surrendering half of their nation's wealth and treasures that have been amassed for generations. This was, most obviously, too painful a price for them to bear. Through the long years and laborious efforts, their forefathers had so painstakingly and jealously hoarded these treasures as heirlooms for posterity. Yet now, they have to give up half of their trove willingly. The three trembled with reluctance. Yet never would they dare defy the will of the Tang Emperor. It shall be as you command. In 10 days, the Ape Holy Master replied grudgingly through gritted teeth. Sound judgment.
Leave now.
The Tang Emperor dismissed them with a flail of his sleeves. Immediately, with haste, the three swiftly mustered the remaining of their forces and withdrew. As the invading host began to turn and leave with their heads hanging at their defeat, thunderous cries began to erupt in the imperial city. The remaining warriors and the defenders of the city all broke into exultant cheers at their triumph. For more than a millennium and 2 centuries, they have endured the siege launched by the hosts of the three great countries, tolerating their incessant jeers and mockeries for having to cower within the protective barriers of the imperial city as they had been too powerless to repel the invaders at their gates. And now, at long last, the invading hosts of the three great countries were forced to withdraw, defeated after many long years of trying to subjugate them. They have lost, miserably and ignominiously. More importantly, the founding father of the empire, the Tang Emperor himself, has returned. Painful trials and heavy tribulations the empire has endured in this millennium-long conflict. Yet, all matters would be set right through the return of the Tang Emperor. With the Tang Emperor returned, None in the entire Green Fire world would dare incur the wrath of the Tang Empire anymore. This was the authority and dominance that the Tang Emperor wielded. Master, teacher, Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun looked upon Jian Wuxuang with anxious excitement. Enough. Let us return. The Tang Emperor repudiated the gestures of his disciples with a wave of his hand, and they all headed back into the imperial city. Within the halls of the handsomely adorned palace, the Tang Emperor, clothed fully in lustrous gold, sat upon his throne. Below the dais stood Emperor Shao, Emperor Yun, Jian Wuxuang, Lung Rushuang, and some of the greatest and most illustrious of the empire. I am to be blamed, Master. It was my incompetence that the empire was ravaged thus by the woman's evil devilry, and we were nearly destroyed. Emperor Shao confessed to the Tang Emperor of what had happened over the years, asking also for his mentor's forgiveness. Listening with a frown, the Tang Emperor muttered, "Never would I have expected that so much had transpired in my absence, that even my disciple would fall into such decadence and conspired with the blood-killing sect against the empire. We must thank our blessings that the people from the blood-killing sect were slain and the empire is saved from utter destruction." The Tang Emperor murmured. As he spoke, his gaze fell upon Jian Wuxuang. "Young man, your name is Jian Wuxuang, is it not?" The Tang Emperor regarded him with a pleasant smile, his tone gentle and affable. "That is so, your Imperial Majesty," Jian Wuxuang replied politely. Even Jian Wuxuang could hardly be behaving respectfully as he stood before the legendary Tang Emperor. "Addressing me as your Imperial Majesty is too distant a greeting for me. You are the student of Little Qing, are you not? You will address me as your Grandmaster." Tang Emperor smiled jovially. "Grandmaster? Little Qing student?" Jian Wuxuang was startled and confused. "Jian Wuxuang," Emperor Shao looked at him, "that powerful method that you learned, the one which I earlier mentioned, belonged to one of my closest friends, who is also my senior sister, Emperor Qing, the most powerful of the 4 emperors."
What?
Jian Wuxuang exclaimed with disbelief. The heavenly creation skill was a creation of Emperor Qing. The mythical Emperor Qing, who is rumored to be as powerful as the Tang Emperor himself. What you have learned was a technique left behind by my senior sister. That makes you her student and the heir to her legacy. Thus, the Tang Emperor, who is her master, is your grandmaster, Emperor Shao smiled. I see. Jian Wuhuang understood now, accepting his newfound lineage. Then again, Jian Wuxuang recognized only one master. That was Xian Yi. Xian Yi was the only master to whom he had truly knelt before and acknowledged, for it was he who had shown him kindness and love. Xian Yi, who was like a father to him. But then again, Jian Wuxuang was the heir to more than a handful of legacies. Through the essence blood of King Luozhen, Jian Wuxuang had inherited the bloodline of the ancient gods. Despite having exhausted more than 9/10 of the essence blood, his body had consumed the rest of it, making him also the heir to the legacy of King Luozhen. Moreover, Jian Wuxuang's survival to this day owed in no small part to the heavenly creation skill. Without it, he was nothing. Therefore, it was only right that he viewed himself as the heir to the legacy of Emperor Qing. For that reason, it was also none too right that he addressed the Tang Emperor as his grandmaster. My deepest respects to you, Grandmaster. Jian Wuxuang bowed reverently to the Tang Emperor. Ha ha! The Tang Emperor broke into a comforting smile. It seems that little Qing had found herself a worthy heir to carry on her methods of inverse cultivation. But have a care, my child. Do not follow the very same path that little Qing had once trodden upon. Chapter 983. The Secret of Inverse Cultivators. Chapter 983. The Secret of Inverse Cultivators. Do not follow in Empress Qing's footsteps. After Jian Wuxuang heard these words, his expression turned quite strange, and he immediately asked, Grandmaster, Uncle Shao, how on earth did Senior Empress Qing die? Jian Wushuang always wanted to ask this question, which at the same time was also a mystery of the Green Fire world. Why did Empress Qing die? Empress Qing's strength was on par with that of the Tang Emperor, and she was invincible in the Green Fire world. No one was able to kill her excluding the experts from outside the Green Fire world. However, the fact was that she died. Among the 4 emperors in the Tang of the East, Empress Qing died first. Just because of that, the Tang of the East would then collapse at its heyday, and a series of changes would take place. Senior sister was not killed by someone else. There are other reasons for her death, Emperor Shao said solemnly. Was it due to her cultivation methods? Jian Wushuang asked with a furrowed brow. Sort of. Emperor Shao nodded. The Tang Emperor then chimed in. I acquired that cultivation method by chance. In the beginning, I figured out that it was unique and fabulous, and I wanted to cultivate it myself. But soon after, I discovered that its power could only be displayed step by step. Therefore, this cultivation method can only be cultivated by younger people who have just come in contact with spiritual power and don't belong to the eternal world. After all, the eternal world has a very favorable cultivation environment with abundant spiritual power. As long as a man is willing to cultivate with concentrated attention, he can reach the skyscraping realm easily, and even reach the divine realm within a few decades. In this way, it is impossible for this cultivation method to achieve the effect of the first few steps in forging a flawless foundation. Jian Wushuang agreed secretly. The heavenly creation skill consisted of 6 steps, namely, reaching the 9th heaven of the divine path, expanding the ultimate spiritual sea, building the supreme gold core realm, yin-yang breaking, becoming a venerable master, and flying to the 9th heaven. There were 6 steps in total. Every step was essential and was the key to forging a flawless foundation. If one who had great talent cultivated the heavenly creation skill in the eternal world, it would only take him a few years to get to the next level. And thus, there was no way for the cultivation method to achieve the effect of those 6 steps and to forge a flawless foundation. So, I went to so many ancient worlds to pick geniuses who were suitable for cultivating this cultivation method. I selected some younger ones and made them my personal disciples. After they became my disciples, I imparted onto them that cultivation method. But unfortunately, if one wants to cultivate that cultivation method, not just talent alone, but many other factors are required. Thus, only little Qing was qualified to cultivate it. As for the other 3, they could not make any progress after reaching the level of spiritual sea or the gold core level. Helplessly, I let them cultivate other cultivation methods so that they could become powerful over time, the Tang Emperor said slowly. An idea crossed Jian Wushuang's mind as he heard these words. He had not felt any other restraints and encountered any obstacles while cultivating the heavenly creation skill. His cultivation process was quite smooth. Therefore, he did not know that there were many other conditions required for cultivating this cultivation method. Jian Wushuang, I have also heard about the cultivation method cultivated especially by inverse cultivators. Gu Qing's voice resounded in Jian Wushuang's heart. If one wants to be an inverse cultivator, a heaven-defying cultivation method is a must. Moreover, the requirements for the person who cultivates the cultivation method are very demanding. As far as I know, in the eternal world, rarely are people qualified to become inverse cultivators. And you, obviously, are one of the few people in the Green Fire world who is entitled to do so. Really? Jian Wushuang was shocked speechless. Only a few people were entitled to become inverse cultivators in the Green Fire world. The odds were so slim. Before my senior sister died, she divided the technique of that cultivation method into 2 parts. They are the 2 gray stone beads that you know. Emperor Shao said, she entrusted 1 gray stone bead to me, and the other, with the little consciousness she had left, entered the ancient world through the portal to find the one who is qualified to become an inverse cultivator. After looking for tens of thousands of years, she finally found you. I believe you must be very curious about why the gray stone bead would appear in your body instead of that of others. That is because you are one of the few people in that world who is qualified to be an inverse cultivator. Moreover, you happen to have not touched any spiritual power yet. I see, I finally see. Jian Wuxuang nodded. He now knew the origin of the gray stone bead that had changed his life and why Empress Qing had chosen him to be her successor. It was because he met the conditions for becoming an inverse cultivator. Kid, the Tang Emperor looked at Jian Wuxuang and said, "The cultivation method you have been cultivating is extraordinary. Even in the entire eternal chaotic world, inverse cultivators are very unique beings. Furthermore, inverse cultivators do everything in defiance of the natural order and will not be tolerated by the world. So, your road ahead will not be smooth. As for what will happen, you will gradually understand after you break through to become a Tao master." I see. Thanks for your advice, Grandmaster. Jian Wuxuang nodded solemnly and began to pay attention to this matter. Even Empress Qing died on the road of inverse cultivation, and he did not consider himself stronger than Empress Qing. Hence, he needed to be more cautious. By the way, I just heard from my disciple that you have an extraordinary teacher, said the Tang Emperor suddenly. Jian Wuxuang froze. Just now, Emperor Shao talked to the Tang Emperor about what had happened over the past few years. Of course, he also mentioned the selection ceremony and the earth-shattering wedding gifts that Jian Wuxuang had taken out from the ceremony. 13,800 Emperor weapons. With so many treasures, the Tang Emperor surely could figure out how unusual Jian Wuxuang's teacher was. Yeah, I have a teacher, Jian Wuxuang replied with a nod. I'm quite curious about your teacher, who is not only able to teach you and the Master Blood Saber, but also can offer so many fabulous wedding gifts. Since you are going to marry my martial granddaughter, could you ask him to be your wedding officiant? The Tang Emperor asked with a smile. Wedding? Jian Wuxuang was dazed by this and subconsciously shifted his gaze to Lung Rushuang, who was sitting beside him. Lung Rushuang also looked at him, and a faint blush could be seen on her cold and arrogant face. Chapter 984, Wedding Ceremony. Chapter 984, Wedding Ceremony. Jian Wuxuang, you have proposed to my daughter with wedding gifts in front of all the experts at the selection ceremony. Do you want to deny what you have done? Emperor Shao smiled and asked jokingly. Of course not. Jian Wuxuang shook his head and returned his smile. I will send a message to my teacher right now. Jian Wuxuang immediately messaged Xianyi. Since it was a marriage, his elders should be present. However, his parents were not by his side, so his teacher should be his wedding officiant. I prepared the wedding gifts for you 1,000 years ago, but you haven't gotten married until now. Xianyi was on cloud 9 after receiving Jian Wuxuang's message. I cannot be your wedding officiant because I have something urgent to do right now. I'll message your senior brother and ask him to be your wedding officiant. My senior brother? Jian Wuxuang nodded. Thank you very much, teacher. Jian Wuxuang soon stopped his communication with Xianyi. In the hall, he looked up and said, My teacher has something urgent on hand and cannot leave for the time being. He'll ask my senior brother to be my wedding officiant. Your senior brother? Master Blood Saber? Emperor Shao raised his eyebrows. It was reasonable for his senior brother to be his wedding officiant instead of his teacher. What a pity! The Tang Emperor shook his head. He was very curious about Xianyi and originally hoped to meet him at the wedding ceremony. However, it seemed that would be impossible now. In that case, we don't have to bother especially choosing a lucky day. You might as well get married tomorrow, the Tang Emperor said directly. Tomorrow? Why should we be in such a hurry? Jian Wuxuang was astonished.
What?
You are unwilling to do that? Tang Emperor asked meaningfully.
No.
Jian Wuxuang shook his head again and again. Girl, the Tang Emperor looked at Lung Rushuang with deep eyes, in which some profound meaning was revealed, and asked, Are you ready to get married tomorrow? Okay, Lung Rushuang replied gently. That's settled then. Order our men to prepare for it. The Tang Emperor waved his hand. Emperor Shao immediately stood up to make preparations for the next day's wedding. Jian Wuxuang was a little confused. He knew that he would marry Lung Rushuang, but He did not expect this day to come so soon. Jian Wushuang, who had almost been deified by others, returned alive and was going to marry Lung Rushuang, the princess of the Tang of the East. The news spread throughout this country, and even the entire Green Fire world like a storm in less than half a day. In an instant, people throughout all of the Green Fire world were shocked, and those in the Tang of the East seethed with excitement. As soon as they received the news, many clans, forces, and experts in the Tang of the East prepared gifts immediately and sent their men to the imperial palace that very day. Many experts even hurried there to congratulate them personally. In the meantime, experts in the Green Fire world dispatched people to send gifts as well. Those who had no time to send gifts there expressed their congratulations as soon as they were able to. Jian Wushuang had great potential. Moreover, the Tang Emperor already returned to the Tang of the East. With him protecting this country, it would be as stable as Mount Tai. Everyone offered their congratulations to them, be it for the sake of Jian Wushuang or the Tang Emperor. Even 3 big countries that were just forced by the Tang Emperor prepared gifts after receiving the news and sent them to the imperial palace as quickly as possible. Jian Wushuang's senior brother, Shueling Tian, also arrived at the imperial palace through the Void Temple's wormhole on the same day. In less than half a day, the Tang of the East had made thorough preparations for the next day's wedding. The night was bright with moonlight. Dressed in a white robe, Lung Rushuang nestled in Jian Wushuang's arms at the top of a 9-layered pavilion and looked at the moonlight shining below. "Did you feel better after taking the crepe myrtle elixir?" Jian Wushuang asked. 1,200 years ago, when he realized that he could not anticipate his end after forcibly swallowing King Luo Zhan's essence blood, he handed the crepe myrtle elixir to Lung Rushuang. Now 1,200 years had passed, and Lung Rushuang should have taken it, and the icy heart poison inside her should have been suppressed. "I feel a whole lot better. Today, Grandmaster personally examined my body, and he said I was fine." Lung Rushuang forced out a smile. "Really?" Jian Wushuang knitted his brows. According to what Gu King had said, Lung Rushuang was not just poisoned by the icy heart poison. Most important of all, she was a primordial great sinner. A primordial great sinner was born to suffer. How could a crepe myrtle elixir really solve all this? Though he had doubts in his mind, he still felt that it was not so good to ask any more questions now that the Tang Emperor had said Lung Rushuang was fine. "I'd better look for an opportunity to ask the Tang Emperor about that clearly," Jian Wushuang thought to himself. The hazy moonlight shone on the vast imperial palace. It seemed as if the entire imperial palace was covered with a layer of silver, and it looked very beautiful. "I feel so good," Lung Rushuang murmured. Her voice resounded around Jian Wushuang's ears. "You can snuggle in my arms until the end of time," Jian Wushuang said with a smile. "I did not expect to hear such words come from your mouth." Lung Rushuang looked up at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was speechless. He was indeed rather ignorant about love affairs. "We're going to get married tomorrow, but unfortunately, my father won't be able to come here." Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, and some bitterness was revealed in his eyes. It had been almost 2,000 years since his father, Jian Nantian, separated from him in the ancient world. He had not received any message from him during this period. "Uncle Xiao should know my father's whereabouts. When the wedding is over and everything in the Tang of the East has settled down, I have to set off to find my father," Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. Right at that moment, Lung Rushuang let out a muffled groan, and her face turned a little pale. "What's wrong?" Jian Wushuang frowned. "Nothing. The wind blows strongly here. Let's go back," Lung Rushuang explained. "Fine." Jian Wushuang nodded. He turned back and left with Lung Rushuang. At this point, there were traces of struggling and shivering in the depths of Lung Rushuang's eyes. Even Jian Wushuang failed to notice it. Lung Rushuang roared in her heart. Please give me one more day. One day is enough. The last day." The energy that had been raging inside her gradually subsided, as if it had heard her growl. Her expression gradually turned normal, and she walked toward her room with Jian Wuxuang. Chapter 985. See you in the next life. Chapter 985. See you in the next life. It was a new day. The sky had just lit up.
Dong, dong, dong.
The deep ringing of an ancient bell resonated across the imperial palace. There was a huge floating platform with a large flight of stairs in the center. Experts of varying powers in Tang of the East had gathered next to the stairs, their attention on the two figures which were making their way forward hand in hand. Clothed in a luxurious silk robe with an intricate golden dragon embroidery design, Jian Wuxuang looked especially captivating. Lung Rushuang was dressed in a striking long red dress, which was embellished with the image of a fire phoenix. Completing the look was a golden phoenix crown, which showed off her unmatchable beauty. One was the most exceptional genius recognized by Green Fire World, the legendary figure of Tang of the East. The other was the most stunning woman of Green Fire World, Emperor Zhao's daughter and princess of Tang of the East. They were a perfect match. As they ascended the stairs and arrived at the center of the platform, bright smiles broke across the faces of Tang Emperor and Xueling Tian, who were in the seats of honor. Bow to heaven and earth. In the presence of the experts, the simple wedding ceremony was completed. The ceremony was followed by a lively and large-scale banquet that extended throughout the imperial palace. Jian Wuxuang celebrated the joyous occasion with the experts with tosses of drinks. The banquet only came to an end late at night. In the wedding chamber, Jian Wuxuang headed back to his wedding room after entertaining the guests all day long at the banquet. Stepping into the room, he shook his body to get rid of the tipsy feeling. His eyes immediately laid onto Lung Rushuang, who was quietly sitting on the edge of the bed and waiting for him. Walking up, he sat down in front of her. Shuanger. Jian Wuxuang looked at Lung Rushuang affectionately. With his fingers, he caressed her hair on both sides of her forehead. You look really breathtaking, Jian Wuxuang said with a smile. Lung Rushuang leaned towards Jian Wuxuang without a word. With a gentle smile, Jian Wuxuang kissed her and did not pull back for a long while. Shuang, I want you. Jian Wuxuang's eyes were burning with desire. He laid Lung Rushuang down onto the bed and slowly leaned towards her. A passionate and delightful wedding night followed. No words were exchanged between the newlyweds. They merely expressed their love towards each other through their actions. When Jian Wuxuang woke up the next morning, Lung Rushuang was sitting at the table. You forgot about the cross-cupped wine last night. It's time to make up for it now, Lung Rushuang said while looking at him with a tender expression. Momentarily stunned, Jian Wuxuang could only look at her. Noticing the wine glasses on the table, he stood up immediately and walked towards her with a grin. The wine glasses were filled with wine. As a representation of our eternal love, let's drink up. Jian Wuxuang took a wine glass in his hands and brought it before his wife. Picking up her wine glass, Lung Rushuang gave a slight quiver that escaped Jian Wuxuang's notice. They crossed the wine glasses and consumed all the wine. The wine has a great taste, Jian Wuxuang commented. The wine left a strong aftertaste in his mouth. It's been some time since you have listened to me playing the Chinese zither. What do you say about me playing a tune for you today? Lung Rushuang said smilingly. That would be amazing, Jian Wuxuang beamed. With a wave of her hand, a Chinese zither appeared in front of Lung Rushuang. Her slender fingers plucked the strings gently. The soul-stirring music slowly traveled across the room. Jian Wuxuang closed his eyes and listened carefully. The tune was sweet and melodious, yet it portrayed mixed feelings of kinds. These mixed feelings were complicated beyond words. The tune conveyed feelings of pain, sorrow, and particularly helplessness. As he listened on, Jian Wuxuang's brows came together in a knit. Lung Rushuang had stopped playing, but the echo of the music remained in Jian Wuxuang's mind. Jian Wuxuang lifted his lids slowly. A flash of doubt appeared in his eyes. Shuanger, We just got married. You should be elated, but your music, Jian Wushuang started. Heartbreaking, isn't it? Leng Rushuang looked at him. Seeing the look in Leng Rushuang's eyes, Jian Wushuang's heart sank with a tremble. Leng Rushuang had tried to keep her pain and helplessness to herself, but her eyes reflected depths of despair. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes, a feeling of dread descending upon him. The tune I just played is called See You in the Next Life. Leng Rushuang said slowly. See you in the next life? What do you mean? Jian Wushuang's expression changed dramatically. Trying to stand up, he found that he was suddenly too weak to do so. Not knowing why, he realized that he had lost even the strength to move his fingers. What is happening? What in the world is going on here? Jian Wushuang was in a fit of shock and rage, but unable to utter any word, he could only roar madly internally. Wine. It's the wine I just drank. Jian Wushuang stared at the wine glasses in front of him with wide eyes. Jian Wushuang, I'm sorry. Leng Rushuang said in a grief-stricken voice. I'm a great sinner. You're too good for me. I'm already contented to be your wife for one day. Sorry? No, I don't want your apologies, no. Jian Wushuang growled crazily inside. He fixed his eyes stubbornly on Leng Rushuang, but was unable to say a single word. Jian Wushuang, goodbye. If there exists the next life, I would love to be your wife again. You and I. Let's see each other in the next life. Leng Rushuang's voice was filled with sorrow. Tears rolled down her face uncontrollably. No. Jian Wushuang broke down. Gu King, quick. Stop her. Help me to stop her. Jian Wushuang shouted internally with all his might. Gu King, who was resting inside of Jian Wushuang's body, remained silent and failed to respond despite hearing the pleas. Jian Wushuang stared at Leng Rushuang with wild eyes. Leng Rushuang gave him a last smile, turned around slowly, and flew away. No! Jian Wushuang let out a thunderous roar inside. The wine took its effect, and he was wiped out. The wine was called Bloody Flame. Originating from eternal chaotic world, the wine required long years of cultivation by a hard-drinking expert. The wine was so potent that a cup is enough to sink Tao masters, celestial masters, and even supreme experts like Tang Emperor into a drunken condition for 7 days and nights. Jian Wushuang, an eternal realm expert, was no match for the strength of the wine. When Jian Wushuang was in the ancient world, to stop his friends from taking risks with him, he had used the 3-day drunk to intoxicate them. The same scenario repeated itself, but this time, Jian Wushuang played the role of the victim. Chapter 986 Out. Chapter 986 Out. Outside the imperial palace, there lay a mountain which no one ever spoke of. In the mountain, Tang Emperor, Emperor Shao, Emperor Yun, Xueling Tian, along with Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan, the 2 sworn brothers of Jian Wushuang, were all waiting. Not long after, a figure in white flew over from the distant sky and landed. It was Leng Rushuang. Her expressionless face, as pale as a piece of white paper, matched her usual icy cool demeanor. Shuanger, Emperor Shao called out to his daughter. He was shaking and looking at her with complicated feelings. It's all the wrench's fault. Emperor Shao growled repeatedly. Father, Leng Rushuang looked at Emperor Shao and said, it's all in the past. There is no use in blaming Mother. Just let her stay in Thunder Hell and live the rest of her life in peace. Emperor Shao could not let it go simply. Girl, come here. Tang Emperor beckoned Leng Rushuang over. Grandmaster. Leng Rushuang greeted him politely, walking over to his side. With a raise of his hand, Tang Emperor left a mark on Leng Rushuang's body. Grandmaster, what's this? Leng Rushuang asked, confused. All of us went behind Jian Wushuang's back to make this one-day marriage possible. After you leave, he will definitely lose his sanity and may even end up mentally deranged. This would impede his growth from then on. This mark here represents his last hope. The young man has a good heart. As long as he has a little hope, he will not give up, and will instead be motivated. This will be good for both you and him in the future. Tang Emperor said. I understand. Lung Rushuang nodded slightly. All of a sudden, her body shook violently, letting out a horrible and cold aura. Time is running out, Lung Rushuang said with an agonized expression. She let out a low cry. Father, Grandmaster, farewell. Everybody, farewell. Jian Wushuang, I'll see you in the next life. With her last words, Lung Rushuang fell into silence and calmness. Everything surrounding her was in a state of complete stillness as well. Wearing faces of discomfort, Emperor Xiao, Tang Emperor, and Emperor Yun fixed their stares on Lung Rushuang. Lung Rushuang stood motionlessly, still wrapped by the icy aura. All of a sudden, Lung Rushuang raised her head harshly. At the same time, the horrible icy aura spread and covered the whole surroundings. Everywhere sank into coldness, and time seemed to be frozen. An evil and crazy expression began to creep its way onto Lung Rushuang's beautiful face. Ha ha! Lung Rushuang laughed in an insane manner, sending echoes everywhere. I'm out. After being sealed for so many years, I am finally out. Now this body is finally under my control. The laughter continued. The horrible laughter placed Tang Emperor, Emperor Xiao, and the other people on the mountain on edge. Emperor Xiao clenched his fists. He knew that this thing in front of him was what his daughter had been tortured by for years. Well? The laughter stopped abruptly, and wicked eyes landed on Tang Emperor and the others. With an eerie smile, Lung Rushuang said, Hey, Tang Emperor, did you just leave a mark on this body? Why, do you really want Jian Wushuang to find me? Why not? Tang Emperor replied coldly. Swear, how dare you be so disrespectful to your grandmasters? Emperor Xiao reprimanded. Shut up. Lung Rushuang glowered at Emperor Xiao and sent a blast of the cold aura at him. Emperor Xiao's body gave a tremble and a muffled groan, and a trail of blood came out from the corner of his mouth. Swear is not for you to call. Do you really think I would take you as my father? It was because I was sealed I had no other choice. Lung Rushuang said coldly. Emperor Zhao's face turned gloomy. Though I should thank Jian Wushuang. Without his help, this stupid woman would never have broken the seal, and I would not have been released so easily. She was stupid enough to sacrifice her life for a man. Shut up, Emperor Xiao shouted furiously. You have complete control over the body now. You can go now. If you have any other concerns, feel free to voice them out. I will settle them all. Tang Emperor scorned. Resolve them all? Lung Rushuang glanced at Tang Emperor with a cold smile. Old man, I have just gotten control over this body and I need more time to gain my strength. I am not a match for you, so I'll have to reject your offer. Be assured, I had made promises to this foolish woman. She had made some ridiculous demands, but I accepted them since she had been quite nice to me over the years. All right, this world is too small. I am not intending to stay here any longer. I will leave now. Haha. With a crazed smile, Lung Rushuang's figure rose into the air and within the next moment, disappeared from the world. As Lung Rushuang left, Tang Emperor and the others were helpless. Damn it! Emperor Xiao punched the ground, leaving a wide and deep pit behind. His body was shaking wildly, his face was veiny with anger, and his eyes were bloodshot. He was unwilling to accept all of this. Master, can't you do anything at all? Emperor Xiao looked at Tang Emperor with grieving eyes. Tang Emperor shook his head and sighed. Primordial great sin. Every primordial great sinner is both a tragedy and a disaster. I would keep her here if I can, even if Shuang'er has to die. But alas, with her advancement to this current stage, I don't have confidence to make her stay. Fortunately, instead of choosing to stay, she decided to leave this world. There are countless powerful experts in the eternal chaotic world. I hope someone there can kill her before she brings disaster. Tang Emperor could do nothing but sigh. Tang Huan turned to look at the others behind him. Now we need to think of an explanation for Jian Wushuang.
A.
Chapter 987. Wait for me.
A.
Chapter 987. Wait for me. Farewell, Jian Wushuang. Ever will I choose to be your wife again, if so a choice comes before me again. I await you in our future life. The last words of Lung Wushuang etched deep into Jian Wushuang's mind. No! With a shrilling howl of pain, Jian Wushuang suddenly woke up. It had been 7 days. You are up, Jian Wushuang. It was the Gu King who had spoken through his mind. Jian Wushuang rose sorely, with a sullen face. What of Lung Wushuang? She is gone, the Gu King said simply. Gone? Jian Wushuang stammered as he nearly collapsed. But immediately, he asked sharply. You long knew it, do you, Gu King? I am afraid I did. The Gu King made no attempt to conceal. Jian Wushuang took a deep and heavy breath, clenching his fists tightly as he murmured in a low voice, Tell me, what happened? It all began with the story of the great primordial sinner. The Gu King began his tale. It was said that the great sinners in the entire eternal chaotic world are extremely evil and vicious, such as the folk of the blood-killing sect. They would stop at nothing in order to achieve their motives, committing countless atrocities so vile and brutal that their sins began to accumulate. At length, they will gradually turn into great sinners. These great sinners are estranged from the common folk by their depravities, and some champions of just and right will rise up against the great sinners to thwart them and slay them. They become so by their own hands, the acts they committed and the blood they shed. Yet, there is another caste of great sinners, the great primordial sinner, namely those such as your lover. These are sinners who bear the weight of the great primordial sin which was inherited through generations. Most great sinners reap the fruits that they sow by their own hands. But there is a very slim likelihood that a great sin is passed down to the next generation where one's descendants will inherit the burden of retribution. The influence of the great sin shouldered by one's descendant will slowly erode all that is good of that descendant's character and spirit. Eventually, the great primordial sinner will turn into an evil that will even dwarf most other great sinners.
What?
Jian Wushuang was shocked. The great primordial sinners will turn extremely evil. But despite her frosty demeanor, Lung Wushuang is hardly vicious nor evil. As a great primordial sinner, your lover should have long been devoured by the influence of the great sin and become an evil person. Perhaps it was her mother's love for her. She might have cast an enchantment, a magical seal which had sustained her personality as long as it could. The magic of the seal is most unusual. I wager that it should be the doing of Dao Yuanzi. It was by this very seal that your lover was hardly consumed by the influence of the great sin. Then again, the strength of a great sin's influence is never to be overlooked. Dao Yuanzi's magical seal would never be able to hold it for long. Moreover, the influence of the sin has formed an alter ego within her. The Gu King continued. An alter ego? All of this was news to Jian Wushuang. Do you mean there are two forms of consciousness within Lung Wushuang? Yes, the Gu King nodded. One is the true consciousness of your lover, and the other is the alter ego formed by the influence of the great sin. Jian Wushuang found himself trembling. Suddenly, a stroke of realization hit him face first. Lung Wuxia. Could it be Lung Wuxia? The odd notion hit him suddenly. Two forms of consciousness coexist within the same body, not unlike two tigers jousting for domination of a mountain. With the magical seal in her, your lover had been maintaining a distinct edge as she maintained the control her body. But nothing will be the same when the powers of the seal falter.
A.
I've been observing your lover in secret since your return to the imperial city. The influence of the great sin has gnawed much of her. She can struggle for no longer, and she is beyond salvation. Before long, the influence will devour her whole, and her true personality will be extinguished. The old Lung Wushuang will fade into perpetual darkness and despair without being able to see the light of day. The Gu King managed finally. What? Jian Wushuang gasped with disbelief. Her true consciousness will fade into perpetual darkness and despair. She will never be able to once again see the light of day. That was the price of Lung Rushuang releasing the seal within her. You had before implored me to stop her, Jian Wushuang, the Gu King sighed. It is useless. The terror within her will erupt once her consciousness has been fully subdued by the influence of the great sin. Her strength will soar rapidly beyond imagination, so will her gift to unleash carnage and destruction. It will be nothing short of disastrous and apocalyptic if she managed to survive. Knowing fully well of this, she chose to leave you, and also this world. Jian Wushuang could hardly hold his body that trembled with grief and agony. The great primordial sinners are but a pitiful and miserable existence. But there is nothing you can do save to strengthen yourself and achieve true greatness and omnipotence, like the founder of the Star Bloodline and King Luozhen. Only then you are able to restrain her and save her. The Gu King said to him seriously. I understand. Jian Wushuang exhaled deeply, calming himself. What the Gu King had said was true. As a mere warrior of the eternal realm, there were many others who wielded greater strength than him in the green fire world, let alone the rest of the countless others from vast eternal chaotic world. Whereas the great primordial sinners were existences that struck fear and horror across the plains of the eternal chaotic world for the terror and destruction they unleashed. As he was now, Jian Wushuang was hardly capable of changing the fate of Lung Rushuang or helping her. The only course of action laid before him was to improve himself and slowly climb his way into greatness. Only then could he be able to make a difference. Hardships and pain await those who tread the path to triumph. Never will it be easy for one to scale the cliffs of success, yet the challenge will hardly deter me. Success will be mine, no matter how long it takes. Be it tens of thousand years, hundreds of thousand years, or even longer. The day will come where I, Jian Wushuang, will make it to the top. Then I will be able to change everything. Wait for me, Shuang. Jian Wushuang's eyes glinted with hope as he clenched his fists so tightly that his nails bit deep into his flesh, a pain that would forever remind him of the vow he made this day. Jian Wushuang was steeled with resolve and conviction. He will embark on his quest to achieve the peak of omnipotence, a quest where none would thwart him from. Chapter 988, The Samsara Continent. Chapter 988, The Samsara Continent. Under the eaves of the great hall in the palace, the Tang Emperor was deep in discussion with Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun on grave matters of state. Jian Wushuang walked straight into the hall. Noticing his arrival, the Tang Emperor and the rest of the other people present looked at him strangely. Seniors Tang Emperor, Emperor Shao, and Emperor Yun. Jian Wushuang greeted them. Jian Wushuang. Tang Emperor began to speak with a pained expression, but his voice trailed off as he knew not of what to say. I have been told everything. I don't blame you, and I know what should I be doing next. Jian Wushuang said gravely. He did not blame the Tang Emperor and others for keeping the truth about Lung Rushuang from him, knowing full well that they had been trying to spare him the agony of grief. Hearing his words, the brows of the Tang Emperor rose with a jot of admiration towards Jian Wushuang, liking him even more. And here I was, thinking that the young fledgling will be thrown into a fit of madness or despair. It seems that my concern is misplaced. He is more mature and wise beyond my expectations, the Tang Emperor thought quietly. He waved his hands, and a token appeared in his hand. I have left a mark in Shuang'er when she passed. This token allows one to perceive the existence of the mark if it is close by. But the token has lost its hold of the mark for now, since she had left this world and had gone far from us. Jian Wushuang received the token and clasped tightly it in his hand. My deepest thanks, Senior. I am afraid that is all that I can do, the Tang Emperor muttered with exasperation. Jian Wushuang nodded gently and turned to Emperor Shao. I have something that requires your counsel, Senior Shao. Jian Wushuang said solemnly, it's about my father. Your father? Emperor Shao first looked surprised as he then nodded slightly.
Very well.
I do know about your father's whereabouts, but it's a long story.
Sit down.
I'll tell you everything. Jian Wushuang nodded and found a place, sitting down immediately. Surely you know that this eternal world we reside in is but only one of the many domains of the entire eternal chaotic world. Emperor Shao asked. I know that, Jian Wushuang answered. But you may not know that they are actually 2 continents in this world, Emperor Shao revealed suddenly.
What?
Jian Wushuang was taken aback by the sudden revelation. 2 continents. Yes, this is the Green Fire World, a domain which is made up of 2 continents, the Void Continent and the Samsara Continent, Emperor Shao explained. Although the 2 continents are of the same domain, the continents are not directly connected. One can only travel between the 2 continents through an anomalous spatial wormhole. The continent we now reside in is the Void Continent. Gripped by shock and surprise, Jian Wushuang had not heard of such tales before. It was only on this day that he finally knew that the Green Fire World was made up of 2 continents. The Void Continent is actually named after the Void Temple, which reigned supreme across this lands. I assume you are familiar with the geography of the continent, but the Samsara Continent is hardly the same. Emperor Shao continued. Twice as large as the Void Continent, the Samsara Continent has more warriors learned in the skills of combat and martial techniques. Their number overshadows us many times over. Moreover, the civilizations of the Samsara Continent are not divided by various factions or sovereign boundaries, having only one exclusive kind. One exclusive kind? Jian Wushuang asked in surprise. These people bear the lineage of an ancient bloodline, a bloodline which is very strange and unusual, just like yours, said Emperor Shao. Young one. The Tang Emperor craned down at him. I believe the bloodline of the fabled ancient god clan runs in your veins, one which is especially high atop their hierarchy. And yet I know there is one such tribe amongst the many different clans and lineages of the Samsara Continent which could be closely related to the ancient god clan. Oh. This piqued Jian Wushuang's interest as he asked, Do you have the name of the tribe?
Nay.
I have only once heard the mention of this matter in the Green Fire Palace. I had not asked about it, and hence I know not of their name. The Gu King shook his head and smiled. Jian Wushuang could only frown with disappointment. He had surmised that it was through his mother that he had received the bloodline of the ancient god clan. Hence, the tribe could also be related to his mother, since they might be sharing a common origin with the ancient god clan. Pray continue, senior, Jian Wushuang said. Emperor Shao paused briefly before he spoke again. Despite the existence of many tribes and races in the Samsara Continent, the lands have been ravaged by their constant strife and conflict fueled by the difference in strength and power. Then again, only one faction reigns supreme across the plains of the Samsara Continent, the Samsara Temple. The Samsara Temple of the Samsara Continent enjoyed a similar dominance to that of the Void Temple here, remaining feared and respected by all while they kept themselves from the struggles and clashes of the land. None in the Samsara Continent dare challenge the authority and power of the Samsara Temple. The Samsara Temples? Jian Wushuang repeated, his brows rising curiously. It was hardly a secret that the Great Void Temple commanded absolute dominance across the Void Continent, shying away from the squabbles and skirmishes of the various factions of the land. But the Samsara Temple was their equivalent upon the Samsara Continent. 2 powerful factions that were almost mirror images of each other. The Samsara Temple shares a lot of common ground with the Void Temple. But the Void Temple is less stringent in its restrictions and selections of prospective members. The Void Temple Master ordinarily selects the greatest warriors of the Void Continent directly, just like how the former Temple Master had once invited you to join them. Emperor Shao said. Jian Wushuang nodded lightly in agreement. He knew that his senior brother had first achieved the title of Dao Master before being offered a place as a Master of the Void Temple. But the Samsara Temple functions differently, for most of their own warriors are trained and nurtured by the Samsara temple themselves. Emperor Shao continued, and they are most commonly known as the reincarnators. The reincarnators are divided into 9 different castes, each commanding varying authority and strength. Every one of them hailed from different origins. Some are prodigies in the skills of combat native to the Samsara continent, while there are also others recruited from the Void continent. Yet, most of them are from the innumerable strata of the domain of the ancient world. The ancient world? Jian Wushuang felt another jolt of surprise. In short, the Samsara temple will offer you a place amongst them if you display a certain level of talent and potential, promising you great benefits and resources. Then again, the risks are proportionate. Reincarnators have to endure deadly perils in order to enjoy the limitless resources and rewards. Chapter 989, Reincarnator. Chapter 989, Reincarnate. By choosing to be a reincarnator, one embarks on a perilous path where only the victors triumph and the defeated rot into oblivion, a terribly treacherous path from which there is no returning from. Once selected by the Samsara temple, the candidates will have to take part in a series of tests, after which the ones qualified will become rank 1 reincarnators. They will then be entered into contests of life and death, where only the fittest and strongest survive. And once in a certain period of time, the Samsara temple will continually vet the competence of the reincarnators with another series of grueling trials which participation is mandatory. A rank 1 reincarnator, for instance, would be expected to have his or her competence re-examined once every decade. He or she will be promoted into rank 2 if he or she passes the test. In the case of failure during the test, but he or she manages to survive, the reincarnator will be expected to undergo another test after another decade. Nevertheless, a reincarnator will be mercilessly executed if he or she fails to qualify in 3 consecutive tries. There will be no quarter spared. Emperor Shao said. An execution if one fails to qualify in 3 consecutive tries. Jian Wushuang grimaced at the terrible tale of the Samsara temple. It would have been very much pleasant if the reincarnators were allowed to choose on whether they agree to a test. Yet, these tests are imperative to the reincarnators every decade without being accorded the privilege of choice. By crook or by hook, a rank 1 reincarnator will have to qualify to become rank 2 in 3 attempts lest he or she will be ruthlessly executed. Such is the cruel and torturous path of becoming a reincarnator. The tests may be easy and manageable for most reincarnators to rise up to rank 2 or even 3. Yet, the challenges of qualification increase many times over as one climbs up to higher ranks. The very same conundrum remains. All reincarnators have to pass within the stipulated time frame, lest they have to pay with their own lives. It is only after reaching rank 6 that a reincarnator is finally free of the being required to sit for examinations, Emperor Shao said. So, everyone has to reach rank 6 within the specified time frame beside traversing the excruciating challenges of the tests. What a brutal way of life indeed. Jian Wushuang thought quietly. It is more than that. In most cases, no even one candidate from among 10,000 reincarnators would be able to achieve rank 6 in time. Emperor Shao said gravely. Almost none of the natives of the continent dare attempt the undertaking of becoming a reincarnator henceforth, due to its bloody and violent history, save for a few who hailed from the ancient world, a few ignorant and uninformed souls who knew nothing of the dangerous fates that await them. The few souls indeed, like your father himself, who had also begun treading on this very same path as a reincarnate. Jian Wushuang was shocked at this sudden revelation of his father. He had begun to pick up the gist when Emperor Shao began his tale of the grim fate of becoming a reincarnator. Years before, Di Jing was aghast by Jian Nanshan's decision to attempt such a risky endeavor. He had then revealed to Jian Wushuang about his father's decision to set off on a journey so deadly and treacherous. With Emperor Zhao's detailed elaboration, Jian Wushuang was now fully certain. Indeed, his father had chosen a most horrible path that only a handful in the entire green fire world would dare walk. The life of a reincarnator of the Samsara Temple was indeed a phylogenetic struggle where only the strongest survived. Most of the great warriors of the Green Fire world have heard of the tales of the reincarnators of the Samsara Temple. I am sure that your father knew the risks that he undertook, Jian Wushuang. The Samsara Temple must have been forthcoming about these conditions when they offered a place to your father, and he had willingly obliged. Emperor Shao muttered under a light breath. Jian Wushuang could not help but grow tense and anxious as the words his father said to him before he left returned to him once more. No matter how dangerous this path may be, no matter how this road may even be my last, no doubt or fear may dissuade me from seeing her, even if it's only for one moment. Father chose this road, although he knew that it was full of dangers which could even lead to his death. Jian Wushuang clasped his hands tightly as his eyes glinted, mirroring the brimming emotions trying to pour out. There was but only one reason behind his father's decision for such an undertaking. It was all for Mother, is it not, Father? Jian Wushuang murmured quietly. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, the strong and violent undulations of his heart simmering down. He looked at Emperor Shao once again and said, "Do you have any way that I can locate my father, Uncle Shao?" Even amongst the members of the Samsara Temple, information about the reincarnators is closely guarded with intense fervor and zeal. There is but only one way. You will have to travel to the Samsara continent yourself. Seek out a golden-clothed deacon or other members of higher position within the Samsara Temple. With the help of one such individual, you should be able to locate your father's whereabouts. Emperor Shao explained. A golden-clothed deacon? Jian Wushuang repeated, his face flushed with hope. Gold-clothed deacons of the Samsara Temple are commonly rank 7 reincarnators, ones who are equal to one of the strongest rank 2 Dao masters or a rank 3 master. Even upon the vast sword of the Samsara continent, such powers are hard to come by. With superior authority and power, they are generally informed about the information of reincarnators below rank 7.
Emperor Shao said.
Below rank 7? What about the information of reincarnators above rank 7? Jian Wushuang frowned. It is least likely that your father is above rank 7. He has only been a reincarnator for less than 2 millennia, being rank 6 at best if he had passed all tests with hardly any mishaps. Most rank 6 reincarnators wield the destructive powers of a Dao master, being a potent force in their own right. Emperor Shao shook his head. By his calculations, Jian Nantian would, at most, have achieved rank 6 in the span of 2 millennia, which in itself was already a remarkable feat. It was simply implausible that he had reached rank 7. Not everyone could hope to possess the extraordinary talents of Jian Wushuang after all. Despite possessing ample talents of his own, Emperor Shao felt that Jian Nantian was still far behind in potential than his own son, Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang nodded as he swallowed Emperor Zhao's word with reluctance, keeping reservations on his own. It seems like you do indeed intend on going to the Samsara continent yourself, Jian Wushuang? Emperor Shao looked inquisitively at him.
Yes.
Jian Wushuang replied heavily. For 2 millennia, Jian Wushuang had been separated from his father, without any news from him as to whether he still lives. It was a pity that his father had not been present to witness his marriage with Lung Rushuang. But now that he has an inkling as to where he might be, Jian Wushuang was resolved to seek out his father. How can I go to the Samsara continent, Uncle Shao? Jian Wushuang asked. I know not myself the way there, but you can ask your senior brother for help. There is a spatial wormhole inside the Void Temple that leads to the Samsara continent. Emperor Shao said. I see. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. When will you be leaving, Jian Wushuang? Emperor Shao then asked. Right away. Jian Wushuang answered, his hand balled into a fist as a show of his resolution. Chapter 990, The Bloody Moon. Chapter 990, The Bloody Moon. Peace and order returned to the Tang Empire with the return of the Tang Emperor. Having discovered the possible whereabouts of his father, Jian Wushuang was ready to leave immediately to seek him out. He was only beginning to embark on his journey when the Tao Master Spirit came to him. Many a great year ago, the Tao Master Spirit had once been shown kindness by the then-living Emperor Qing. In memory and gratitude of the grace she had received, she had come to help in the defense of the empire when Emperor Xiao had requested for her aid. "I am here to inform you that I have accomplished the deed as you bade me, Jian Wushuang." The Tao Master Spirit handed to Jian Wushuang a scroll. "Is the seal undone?" Jian Wushuang asked with joy and anticipation. Jian Wushuang had chanced upon the scroll when he had slain Xia Yan, the second young master of the Xia clan, at Circus Island. Once belonging to Xia Yan, it was one of the most precious treasures that he had pillaged from his dead adversary. The scroll was supposed to contain a powerful and destructive sword essence, making it a most valuable treasure to have in one's possession. But when Jian Wushuang had first laid his hands upon the scroll, he had discovered that the scroll was being guarded by a powerful magical seal. For many years, he was not able to undo the magic that guarded the scroll as he held back his fervent eagerness at his helplessness of not being able to defeat the seal. Returning to the imperial city and meeting with the Tao Master Spirit had renewed him with hope. She might be able to break the seal. As the greatest conjurer of magical formations across the vast terrains of the Green Fire world, the Tao Master Spirit was able to defeat the magic that guarded the scroll in only a few days. The magical seal that held the scroll was powerful indeed. "I have exhausted a great deal to destroy the seal. But this scroll is indeed a rare treasure, one that I believe will surely be helpful in your endeavor now," the Tao Master Spirit said. "Thank you so much, Senior." Jian Wushuang was very grateful. "My pleasure. Moreover, I am curious to see what heights you will one day achieve in the future." The Tao Master Spirit beamed at him with a smile. "Well, now that the siege of the imperial city has been lifted and empire is delivered from ruin and despair, I will now take my leave. Farewell, Jian Wushuang." With that, the Tao Master Spirit turned and left, swinging the sleeves of her robes as she spun. Jian Wushuang immediately peered through the contents of the scroll. He had reached the most important parts of what he was reading when his eyes widened with amazement. "Oh my, there are actually 19 complete sword principles in this scroll?" Jian Wushuang exclaimed with delight. It was a truly powerful swordsman who had, with great strength and effort, inscribed the complete teachings of all 19 sword principles into this scroll. Moreover, that was hardly all. The scroll had also contained illustrations and sketches depicting the application of the swordsmanships in combat. It was as if the all 19 sword principles were thoroughly displayed in their fullness before Jian Wushuang. "This is great. This is great indeed." Jian Wushuang burst with joy and disbelief. "Being at the pinnacle of the eternal realm, my next course of action for advancement will be to forge a sword principle of my own to achieve the rank of Tao Master. Long before, I have assimilated the acumen of forging the strongest sword principle that Tao Yuanzi had left behind. And now, I have the scroll containing 19 complete disciplines of sword principles with details, illustrations of their use in combat. There are 10 ordinary-leveled principles, 6 universe-leveled principles, and 3 creation-leveled principles in all. Despite not being the most powerful and strongest of sword principles, they are all invaluable to me nonetheless. I have always been gifted with using the sword. With the assimilated acumen of forging the strongest sword principle and these 19 sword principles, it will not be long for me to create my own sword principle. I might even be able to forge the strongest sword principle of my own." Jian Wushuang's eyes sparkled with confidence. On the very same day, Jian Wushuang went to meet with his senior brother, Shui Lingtian. Standing before the huge mouth of a spatial wormhole. "Are you truly adamant on going to the Samsara continent, junior brother?" Shui Lingtian asked with chagrin, distressed for the safety of his fellow disciple.
"Yes."
Jian Wushuang nodded. "Very well. The wormhole is open to you now. Then again, I do not know where will this wormhole lead you upon the Samsara continent. The Samsara continent is, after all, under the dominion of the Samsara temple. The Void Temple holds no sway there. Be extremely careful there. Shuai Lingtian warned. Understood. Jian Wushuang replied with a cheerful chuckle as he stepped into the wormhole before him. With a flash of a light, Jian Wushuang's figure dissolved out of sight. In a land shrouded by darkness and gloom. It was in the deep of night, where the moon shone richly in blood-crimson red over fields of the antiquated earth. The fetid air reeked strongly of blood and malice. This was the Samsara continent, a land where only the law of jungle reigned supreme. The way of life that was more brutal and cruel that the Void Continent could never hope to compete. The space in the air over a barren field ruptured suddenly, revealing a crack that issued the figure of a person who shot out swiftly into open. Wearing a crimson robe made of the blood-killing plate armor and the Blood Mountain sword carried over his back, Jian Wushuang had finally stepped upon the Samsara continent. Am I now in the Samsara continent? Jian Wushuang cast his sights around him curiously. He found himself standing in the middle of a wide meadow. There was nothing but emptiness all around him, save for the silhouette of mountains many leagues away in the gloom of night. The moon. It is blood red. Jian Wushuang looked up at the sky, and a smile lined over his lips. Different continents have varying environmental properties. It appeared that the heavenly bodies seen from the Samsara continent were different to that of the Void Continent. Yet the primal rule of the survival of the fittest applied everywhere. Just reaching this continent, I am barely familiar with anything around here. I need to first find a place to settle down before I begin to search for the golden-clothed deacon of the Samsara temple. Jian Wushuang decided. All of a sudden, Jian Wushuang felt the air quivered. A jet of energy blast had shot through the air nearby. It had originated from a site far away from where Jian Wushuang stood. It was due to his powerful senses that he could feel it. Is there a battle taking place there? With a curious twitch of his brows, Jian Wushuang sped swiftly towards the point of origin of the energy blast. He reached before a battlefield, finding the dangerous flickers of steel and fire shimmering relentlessly in the midst of night as men fought and cried in a fierce and brutal battle. There were hundreds of thousands of people fighting against one another. Kill them all. On this day, the Heavenly Ape clan will be utterly destroyed. Kill every one of them. Spare no quarter. Ha 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 ha. Kill them all. Kill them all. Screams and cries of killing resounded across the gloomy vista hemmed by the din of clashing steels and the sporadic shrieks and howls of pain and agony. The people crying and screaming in anguish were mostly children and women. Witnessing the carnage and bloodthirstiness of the slaughter, Jian Wushuang could not help but grimaced with an inexplicable pain. This was not a battle. This was a massacre. Chapter 991. The Bystander. Chapter 991. The Bystander. This is madness. Jian Wushuang's brow grimaced with an inexplicable pain that seemed to stem from his heart as he witnessed with own eyes the massacre taking place before him. Uncle Xiao had mentioned of the brutality and carnage between different tribes and races as they slaughter one another. To think that I am witnessing the very same myself. The gap between the two different races was so apparent that the losing side could barely defend themselves from the merciless butchery of the aggressing faction. There was hardly any ounce of mercy, for even the children and women were also butchered like the dying warriors fighting to defend them. A race of 10,000 decimated to the brink of utter annihilation. So terrible that there might not even be more than a handful left of the remnants who managed to survive. Jian Wushuang muttered as he heaved a heavy sigh. Just then, Jian Wushuang turned with astonishment as he saw a figure speeding at him suddenly. It was a middle-aged man whose skin was of a copper-bronze complexion. Bristles of unkempt hairs were visible upon the man's chin as he cradled a child not more than 10 years of age tightly in his arms. Father. The child whimpered as he looked upon his father, his cheeks red with anxiety. mother, uncle, and third uncle. His whole body shaking with intense grief, the middle-aged man spoke through gritted teeth. They are all dead. They have all perished. Our entire tribe is no more. Hearing the words that confirmed his dread, the child fell into silence, his little hand balled into a tightly clenched fist with rage as he suppressed his urge to break into tears. After them. Leave none alive. A deep roar came from behind. The middle-aged man turned pale as he heard the loud cries behind him. Turning to his back, he saw 4 figures chasing after him. The 4 pursuers who came radiated powerful aura of their own, all of which was on a par with the levels of the Eternal Realm. Curse our fortunes. We have been noticed. The middle-aged man swore under his breath and increased his speed. But he had barely run far when he noticed the figure of a young male in crimson robes who had a sword carried over his back. It did not take long for the 4 pursuers to also notice Jian Wuxuang's presence. Ha ha ha. It seems that we have overlooked one here. Finish him off, brothers. The man with purple hair exclaimed heartily with a laugh. Jian Wuxuang's face darkened with displeasure as he heard the cries of the men about him. Replying with a growl, Jian Wuxuang spoke, I am but an innocent bystander. A bystander? Ha ha ha. Do you expect me to take you for your words? The purple-haired man sneered coldly. None of the Heavenly Ape clan will be allowed to live past this day. We will eliminate anyone around here to prevent any possibilities of any survivors. A strong bloodthirstiness rose in the air as the 4 men readied themselves to satiate their craving for blood. Even though they were hardly the strongest tribe in the Samsara continent, they were nonetheless the strongest in the nearby regions. Hence, they had tormented the weaker tribes nearby with their malice and cruelty. The annihilation of the Heavenly Ape clan on this day was but a mere instance of the mediocrity of terror and destruction these people have inflicted upon others. Sensing that Jian Wuxuang was of the Eternal Realm, the purple-haired man regarded him as nothing but a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. You are willing to kill anyone just to prevent from sparing any survivors? Jian Wuxuang murmured as his eyes glinted with cold fury when the 4 men charged towards him. Just when the 4 men were but tens of meters away from him. Get lost. Jian Wuxuang barked a thunderous roar that was imbued with the ancient god power.
Pooh, 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 pooh.
The 4 men felt their bodies shuddered, followed by agonizing pain that forced them to spat out mouthfuls of blood as they recoiled from the blasts of force that hammered them. What was that? The purple-haired man looked at Jian Wuxuang incredulous once he regained his steadiness. Despite his level of the Eternal Realm, the young man possesses unusual strengths, or at least he has remarkable aptitude in using methods of sonic attacks. The purple-haired man's brows furrowed with doubt. With only one loud cry, the young man was able to inflict upon them serious injuries. This was hardly a strength that the 4 of them could easily defeat. The purple-haired man immediately relayed a message using telepathy. We have encountered a strong enemy with powers possibly at the pinnacle of the Eternal Realm. He could be the strongest warrior that the Heavenly Ape clan had been hiding all along. Shortly after the message was relayed, the 4 stood quietly and observed Jian Wuxuang, showing no signs of attacking once more. The middle-aged man who was escaping with his child stopped in his tracks not far away. He shouted to Jian Wuxuang, "Run for your life, young man. The rest of the powerful warriors of the Bone Devil clan will be arriving soon." The Bone Devil clan? Jian Wuxuang heard the warning and felt surprised with the name. He looked up suddenly, murmuring softly, "It is too late, they are here." He had barely finished his sentence when the figure of a large man with a wide girth, clothed in red, landed before Jian Wuxuang. Jian Wuxuang was standing at a little less than 1,000 miles away from the site of the massacre. But it had merely taken the man, an elderly person clothed in crimson red, to arrive in the blink of an eye after he had received the message of the purple-haired man. This is terrible. Of all evil monsters, it had to be him to had come. The middle-aged man screamed with horror, breaking into a run as he tried to carry his child and escape. There are still powerful warriors of the Heavenly Ape clan that still draws breath. The elder in red asked as he surveyed his surrounding with a hateful glare, the strange runic mark on the left of his forehead visibly standing out to all that had seen him. It was him, Elder Scorpion. The purple-haired man pointed at Jian Wushuang and spoke to the elder. It was he who had injured us grievously when we encountered him during our chase for the remnants of the Heavenly Ape clan. He had released a sound wave attack with a loud cry that struck us hard. Oh, a sound wave attack? The eyes of the red-robed elder narrowed slightly with suspicion. None of the warriors of the Heavenly Ape clan were adept in the methods of sound wave attacks.
Who are you?
As I have mentioned to your kinsman earlier, I am but a mere innocent bystander. It was the 4 of your kinsmen who have mistaken me as an enemy and tried to attack me. I have no choice but to defend myself in addition to allowing them a taste of their own medicine. Jian Wushuang replied indifferently. A bystander, you say? The red-robed elder's brows rose with apparent doubt. With an arrogant snort, he spoke. Us of the Bone Devil clan have proclaimed our intentions to annihilate the Heavenly Ape clan 10 days ago. As such, the various warriors and practitioners of the other clans and tribes nearby have all withdrawn from this vicinity. This begs the question, why are you here if you are not one of the Heavenly Ape clan, as you so claim? Clearly, you were lying. Jian Wushuang was astonished. He has just arrived at the Samsara continent from the Void continent. It was by a stroke of woeful fortune that he emerged here. His appearance here was purely coincidental as he had hardly any ties with the Heavenly Ape clan. Humph. Moreover, only one of the Bone Devil clan may enact judgment upon one of our own. Who are you, a mere warrior of the Eternal Realm, to dispense punishment to us? The red-robed elder growled furiously. And for that reason, no matter who you are, you shall pay the price of insolence. The red-robed elder hurled himself at Jian Wushuang as he spoke, his aura rapidly rising with an overwhelming and terrible intensity. Chapter 992, An Eye for an Eye. Chapter 992, An Eye for an Eye. To pay. Jian Wushuang felt his face flushed with anger as rage was brewing in his heart. With no ties with the Heavenly Ape clan, he had not any intentions of intervening in the massacre. But everything is different, now that the Bone Devil clan had dared incur his wrath. To your death, young man. With his face glowering and his eyes flaring with malice, the red-robed elder lunged at Jian Wushuang, appearing before him in the blink of an eye as his palms, adorned with similar runic markings on his skin, threatened to smash into his face. The force of his stroke tore the fabric of space asunder. With this very stroke, the red-robed elder had fully unleashed his powers as a rank 1 Dao master in its fullness. Do you still intend to kill me? Harnessing his rage and aggression, Jian Wushuang channeled the ancient god powers he wielded and concentrated them upon his palms. Grasped tightly into a fist, Jian Wushuang swung his arm forward, releasing the destructive forces that he had mustered. It was a stroke that could even invoke a terrifying storm. Bam! Jian Wushuang's fists crashed into the elder's palms. A huge deafening boom ensued, followed by the sickening crunch of shattering bones. What? The elder's eyes widened with panic. Stricken with fear and panic, he could hardly believe the sight of his entire arm erupting into an explosion of blood and flesh as shreds of his sinews and viscera scattered around. The blow from Jian Wushuang's fists was hardly weakened, transmitting straight into the torso of the elder. Humph! With a painful grunt, the red-robed elder's face paled instantly, and he was suddenly thrown back as he staggered to maintain his balance. But he had barely steadied himself when a ghost-like apparition appeared beside him. With a giant fist glowing in a deep shade of gold, the figure reached for the neck of the temporarily incapacitated elder. The elder in red, a powerful Dao master of his tribe, was held in a vice-like grip by a giant hand like a filthy piece of rag. You were demanding that I pay the price of laying my hands on your kin, old man, were you not? A deathly stare shone with extreme coldness from Jian Wushuang's eyes as his bloodthirsty craving for the elder's blood emanated strongly, blocking out completely what was left of the older man's aura. Frozen with fear, the elder could hardly move a finger as his eyes were filled with shock and terror. Never did he expect that a young warrior of the Eternal Realm could pummel him into such a humiliating defeat. Help! Help! In the midst of his terror-struck hysteria, the red-robed elder immediately relayed a distress message, calling for help from the rest of his clan. Stop! A sudden roar reverberated from the air, and 3 figures sped from the site of the massacre far away with blinding speeds and stopped near Jian Wushuang. The newcomers were 2 men and a woman, 3 of whom radiated whose aura as strong as the crippled elder who is now held in Jian Wushuang's grip. These were clearly powerful Dao masters of their clan. Please release the elder scorpion of our clan, young sir. The only woman of the 3, who was dressed in a blue robe, first spoke. She had the strongest aura of the 3, a Dao master who was very close to reaching the level of rank 2. Amusing indeed. And why should I listen to you? Jian Wushuang snorted as his grip on the elder's neck tightened. Helplessly incapacitated, the face of the older man was slowly turning purple. You dare defy us of the Bone Devil Clan? The woman in blue shouted anxiously. The Bone Devil Clan? The edges of Jian Wushuang's curled into a vicious smirk. Never have I meddled in your affairs. But it was your kinsman who had offended me and tried to attack by viewing me as one of the Heavenly Ape Clan. Therefore I have decided to intercede on their behalf. We shall see what will you do with that. Jian Wushuang was, after all, a firebrand with a short fuse. Even when he was but a young fledgling, he had the courage to challenge the strongest of the overlords of the Nanyang continent. With his current prowess as one of the strongest warriors of the Green Fire world, he would now have hardly any reservations in using his fists to subjugate anyone who dared offend him. As a firm believer of the adage, an eye for an eye, he was not one to forgive and forget, since it was the Bone Devil Clan who had dared rouse his anger. There would be no room for any leniency. Please, Elder Apricot, save me. The immobilized Elder Scorpion, who was held by Jian Wushuang, managing only the few words as best he could. Quiet! The woman in blue snapped at him, swiftly turning into a more amicable and gentle demeanor as she tried to reason with Jian Wushuang. I confess that it was our folly to have angered you, young sir. Please accept our humblest apologies. I beseech upon your kindness for the release of our Elder Scorpion. Oh. Jian Wushuang cocked an eyebrow and snorted indignantly as he loosened his grip. The frail figure of Elder Scorpion immediately slipped out of Jian Wushuang's hand. With what was left of his strength, he scurried miserably to the side of the woman in blue, with fear and terror still lingering upon his face. My deepest thanks, the woman said as she let out a sigh of relief. Never before had the Bone Devil Clan been forced to surrender their dignity in such an ignominious manner. Then again, the blue-robed woman had learned that Jian Wushuang had defeated and crippled Elder Scorpion with merely one stroke. The strength of Jian Wushuang was evident with his effortless defeat of Elder Scorpion, who was a rank 1 Dao Master himself. He's at least a rank 2 Dao Master, or even a rank 2 warrior who has reached the pinnacle with great brute strength. The woman in blue thought quietly to herself. The strength and power that a rank 2 Dao Master wielded was sufficient to strike fear into the Bone Devil Clan. More so with a powerful display of Jian Wushuang's strength, which had disheartened the woman from uttering any objections, effectively smothering whatever ounce of defiance left in her. Word of the purge of the Heavenly Ape Clan was delivered to all other tribes and clans in the vicinity 10 days ago, young sir. Therefore we had not expected any strangers or bystanders to be nearby. With our humblest regrets for offending you, we hope that you will leave us be with our business and withdraw from this area. The woman said all the cordiality she could muster. Very well,
but I will take that too with me.
Jian Wushuang spoke as his finger traced into the distance ahead of him. It was the middle-aged man who had been running away from the site of the battle with his child in his arms. He had tried his best to put as much distance as possible, yet it was still hardly impossible for a Dao master to catch up to him and slaughter them both. In the midst of his panicked flight from the site of the battle, the middle-aged man had noticed what was happening behind him. But knowing that he could ill afford any glance to his back, he chose to run as fast as he could. Very well. The woman in blue nodded, her teeth gritted with unwillingness. Releasing a pair of survivors of the Heavenly Ape clan was hardly too expensive a price for the Bone Devil clan. That'll do. Jian Wushuang began to turn around and shot a fleeting glare at the woman in blue. You would best discipline your kinsmen and practice some humility and respect. Thank the stars for your fortune this time. With that, Jian Wushuang turned and left. Chapter 993, Tribal Heterogeneity. Chapter 993, Tribal Heterogeneity. Jian Wushuang turned and left confidently, leaving the irate warriors of the Bone Devil clan behind him, whose lips twitched with annoyance and anger. Trying his best to silence his rage, Elder Scorpion's face turned pale at the hearing of Jian Wushuang's words. Within himself, he roared, who would have known that a rank 2 Dao master like you would conceal his aura? I would never have dared to infuriate you if only you had shown your aura in the beginning. Nevertheless, Elder Scorpion's was true. None of them, including the purple-haired man, would dare brazenly attack him if Jian Wushuang had earlier revealed his powers as a Dao master. They would first inquire his purpose of being there before deciding if aggression was called for. Appearing suddenly in the vicinity with only the strength of a warrior of the Eternal Realm, the warriors of the Bone Devil clan had foolishly mistaken him as one of the Heavenly Ape clan. Never would they expect that a mere warrior of the Eternal Realm was, in truth, a powerful master of the skill of combat in disguise. Leaving the site of the decimation of the Heavenly Ape clan, Jian Wushuang sped on for some time until he reached the top of a mountain ridge. The middle-aged man stopped before Jian Wushuang, with his child in his arms. He put the boy down and bowed to Jian Wushuang respectfully. I am Yuan Gang of the Heavenly Ape clan. Thank you so much for saving our lives. Howard, quickly, bowed to the young master and thanked him for his kindness. The man urged his son. Thank you so much, sir. The kid fell to his knees and bowed deeply to Jian Wushuang. Up you come. Jian Wushuang waved his hand. Yuan Gang and his son felt a strange force, pouring like a strong wind that lifted them to their feet. Without your help, Howard and I could never hope to have escaped. We will remember your kindness and repay you someday. Yuan Gang continued. Jian Wushuang only shrugged indifferently, showing no heed at all. Alas, even though we've escaped, the Heavenly Ape clan is finished. Yuan Gang's eyes turned wet red, and his son clenched his fists with anger. Jian Wushuang's placid face showed no emotion. It was only by a stroke of coincidence that he had just arrived in the Samsara continent and had saved Yuan Gang and his son. It was a truth that both Yuan Gang and his son were aware of. The Heavenly Ape clan? Jian Wushuang murmured absent-mindedly. Unless I am mistaken, the Heavenly Ape clan would likely be the descendants of a human and the Heavenly Ape, an exotic beast of the eternal chaotic world. The two before you bear the blood of the Heavenly Ape. But the strength of their bloodline is all but spent, so weak that they can hardly use their bloodline power against foes in battle. The Gu King's voice rang in Jian Wushuang's head. Is that so? Jian Wushuang thought to himself, not saying a word. Despite bearing the bloodline of the ancient gods, Jian Wushuang himself could hardly use the bloodline powers of the bodily fluids that flowed through his veins, for he lacked the ritualistic baptism conducted upon him by the ancient god clan. The rituals are the prerequisite condition for him to tap into the powers bestowed by his blood to become a true ancient god and enjoy great enhancements in his strength. The Heavenly Ape clan bore a similarly unique bloodline of their own, yet they have not been able to call upon the powers of their own bloodline. I have a few questions that require honest answers, Yuan Gang, said Jian Wuxuang. You have shown us kindness and grace in dire times of need, sir. I'll answer to the best of my knowledge. Yuan Gang quickly replied. Very well.
It is just a few simple questions.
Jian Wuxuang said as he began. Jian Wuxuang inquired about some common knowledge about life in the Samsara continent, knowledge that any native to the land could easily provide. Before long, Jian Wuxuang had all the answers he required. There are so many tribes and clans in the Samsara continent. Jian Wuxuang thought quietly, even though he was shocked. Based on Yuan Gang's accounts, there were too many tribes and clans in the Samsara continent. So many that conflict and strife constantly plagued the tribal heterogeneity in pursuit of wealth and resources. As time passes, there began a form of hierarchical caste system amongst the multitudes of tribes and clans. There were different tiers of castes that divided the tribes and clans of the Samsara continent: the lesser tribes, the medium-leveled tribes, the stronger tribes, and the principal tribes which occupied the top class of the caste hierarchy. The lesser tribes, which constituted the bulk of the population spread across the entire continent, possessed the weakest strength, making them the easiest tribes to be annihilated and destroyed. The Heavenly Ape clan was one of them. But from this day onwards, the clan would be lost forever from the face of the Samsara continent. Much stronger than the lesser tribes, the medium populations numbered many times lesser than the weaker tribes. Survival was hardly a difficulty as long as they remain prudent and keep themselves from crossing the paths of the greater tribes and principal tribes of the land. The Bone Devil clan was one of these medium populations. Now, in the dale before Jian Wuxuang, there were more than 10 tribes and clans in the vicinity. Only 3 of the 10 were tribes of the medium population. The stronger tribes would number even lesser still. As existences that lorded over the steppes and swords of the Samsara continent, the principal tribes of the land reigned with absolute supremacy. Most of the natives of the Samsara continent bore the bloodlines of ancient exotic beasts. Hence, even from birth, most of them were inherently stronger than common humans. This allowed them greater chances to sire offsprings who could be great warriors in the future. Yuan Gang had also revealed that most lesser tribes are led by chieftains, most likely Dao masters themselves. The medium populations would commonly have more than 10 Dao masters on retainer and a Dao master of at least rank 2 as chieftains. The stronger and principal tribes would most naturally boast of greater strengths than the rest. Even the multitudes of lesser tribes of the Samsara continent have Dao masters as leaders. With the countless heterogeneity in the number of tribes here, there must surely be numerous Dao masters here. Jian Wuxuang thought. This would reinforce the belief that the Samsara continent was indeed very much stronger than that of the Void continent. The Void continent has, at most, a handful of Dao masters clustered together in a habituated area. Yet it was most certainly that the Samsara continent has more than double the number of Dao masters within an area, lending credence that the forces of the Samsara continent would most surely outstrip the Void continent by number and strength. A mere Samsara continent is able to impress you that much, Jian Wuxuang? I stand to wonder, how will you react when you one day venture into the deeps of the vast eternal chaotic world? The Gu King's pestering voice rang suddenly. These are but merely a few Dao masters. Warriors of such level of strength come in tremendous supply in the eternal chaotic world that they are viewed as nothing but mere mediocrity. This made Jian Wuxuang become speechless. Indeed, at present, he was just a person of a limited insight into the greatness of the universe. A few more questions, Yuan Gang. How long have you lived here? Do you know of the Samsara Temple? Asked Jian Wuxuang again. The Samsara temples? Yuan Gang's eyes widened. Of course I do. They are the most supreme sovereign to govern this lands. Not even the principal tribes dare compare themselves with them. Chapter 994. The Dragon Heart Elixir. Chapter 994. The Dragon Heart Elixir. Then you must have heard of the golden-clothed deacon? Jian Wuxuang pressed on his inquiry. The golden-clothed deacon? Yuan Gang shook his head.
No, sir.
I have never heard of him. But I do know a thing or two about the silver-clothed deacon. It's said that the silver-clothed deacon of the Samsara temple used to live among the Bone Devil clan. It was a tale so shocking that it sent ripples through the land. The silver-clothed deacon? Jian Wuxuang muttered. His brows rose with doubt. The silver-clothed deacon was simply a rank 6 reincarnator who commanded limited authority in the Samsara temple. In order to locate his father, it is imperative that Jian Wuxuang sought the help of the golden-clothed deacon. I am a mere practitioner of the eternal realm in a lesser tribe, sir. There is only so much that I know about the Samsara temple. But I know one might be able to supply you with more knowledge about the temple, said Yuan Gang.
Who?
Jian Wuxuang stared at him at once. The Dragon Wing Governor. Yuan Gang replied. Who is he? Jian Wuxuang asked with uncertainty. He is the person who holds the greatest authority in this region. It was said that he wields the greatest strength around this areas, being a rank 3 Dao master. More importantly, he's known to be a pleasant person who enjoys strong ties and connections with many allies. He is influential even amongst the warriors of the medium populations and the stronger tribes. There was word that he was searching for a treasure called the Juka dragon fruit several years ago. When word of his pursuit got out, many warriors came forward to lend him their aid. There were even promises of rich rewards to anyone who is able to come forward with the treasure. Still, the Juka dragon fruit had remained ever so elusive that none has been able to find one. By any means, he is the most influential person in this region. You can ask him for information about the Samsara temple or the golden-clothed deacon. He might be able to help you if he's willing to lend you a hand.
Yuan Gang said.
Hearing this, Jian Wuxuang's eyes flashed with hope and confidence. Jian Wuxuang had not expected that Yuan Gang would be able to supply him with information about the gold-clothed deacon's whereabouts. But Yuan Gang was able to lead him to the one person who might hold the key to the information he required, this Dragon Wing Governor. Where's this Dragon Wing Governor now? Jian Wuxuang asked again. He resides at the Dragon Wing City, which is at the center of this region. Go along this way, sir. The journey to the city is just a few days' walk. Yuan Gang pointed to a direction as he instructed. Thank you. Jian Wuxuang thanked him and asked another question. What are your plans, now that your tribe is no more? That will hardly be a problem. We can easily join other tribes by posing as lone recluses. We might not have the respect we once had, but we will survive. Yuan Gang replied. Very well. Jian Wuxuang nodded gently. With a wave of his hand, he produced something for Yuan Gang. There are some divine gems in this interspatial ring. These might be useful to you. Immediately, Jian Wuxuang turned and left. Thank you, sir. Yuan Gang thanked him profusely, stealing a brief glance into the contents of the ring when it was handed to him. His face lit up at the revelation of its contents as he held it tightly in his grasp. He turned to his son. We will live in disguise from now on, Lair. Under no circumstances, you are to allow anyone to know that we are from the Heavenly Ape clan. The truth must be kept until you wield enough strength, like the great man earlier. You will then seek to exact revenge for the deaths of our family and our kin. You understand? Said Yuan Gang gravely. Yes, I do, father. Lei Hao nodded heavily. You will also remember for the rest of our lives the kindness and grace shown to us by the great man just now. You will seek to repay his kindness one day when you grow stronger. Yuan Gang continued after pausing briefly. Yes, father. Lei Hao nodded again. It was finally many years later when a warrior called Lei Hao would emerge. With the bloodline of the Heavenly Ape awakened in him, he would then become one of the greatest warriors of the Samsara continent, where he then annihilated the Bone Devil clan as retribution for the atrocity they inflicted towards him and his clan many a great year ago. The boy would remember for the rest of his life the kindness that Jian Wuxuang had shown him. Still, Jian Wushuang was nowhere to be found when he was ready to repay him. Going in the direction that Yuan Gang pointed to him, Jian Wushuang finally saw from afar a huge city after 2 days of traveling. It was a city so large that it dwarfed even the imperial city of the Tang Empire, even though the furnishings of the city structures are a little less magnificent and handsome. Despite the never-ending conflicts and battles that ravaged the lands of the Samsara continent, many great cities such as this one still endured strongly as ever. The city was called the Dragon Wing City, a city which was built by the Dragon Wing governor himself. Conforming to how Yuan Gang had described him, it appeared that the Dragon Wing governor indeed wielded great strength and influence. Jian Wushuang stepped through the gates of the city and asked around for directions to the mansion where the Dragon Wing governor resided. The Dragon Wing governor lives in that mansion. Standing in front of the well-guarded mansion, Jian Wushuang could feel the powerful auras of the sentinels watching the mansion, counting more than 5 Dao masters at least. Surely you have enough wits to know better than to rashly intrude upon the Dragon Wing governor, Jian Wushuang? The Gu King's voice resounded suddenly. Jian Wushuang forced a wry smile. As the most prestigious figure in the region, it was hardly a surprise that many would travel from far and wide only to meet with the Dragon Wing governor to solicit his aid or to make an acquaintance. As a stranger who had just come to the Samsara continent, Jian Wushuang had neither the standing nor the respect to command attention from the governor, especially when he wielded only the strength of the Eternal Realm. It would be nothing short of preposterous to expect that he would be immediately granted an audience with the governor, much less to request for an introduction with the golden-clothed deacon of the Samsara temple. Then what should I do? Asked Jian Wushuang. Did Yuan Gang not mentioned earlier about the Juka dragon fruit which many had sought for only to return with failure? The Gu King suggested intentionally.
He did.
Do you expect me to look for the fruit and use it to secure an audience with the Dragon Wing governor? But I have not the treasure myself. Jian Wushuang could not help frowning. That is true. You don't have Juka dragon fruit. But you have the Dragon Heart Elixir, a concoction which was largely produced from the extraction of the Juka dragon fruit, said the Gu King. The Dragon Heart Elixir? Jian Wushuang repeated, perplexed and bewildered. During the siege of the imperial city of the Tang Empire more than 1 millennium ago, Jian Wushuang was able to chance upon the Dragon Heart Elixir. He had found it from one of the many enemies he had slain. It was also then when he had come across the interspatial ring and many other valuables and resources. Unless I am mistaken, Jian Wushuang, the Dragon Wing governor wants the Juka dragon fruit because he intends to brew a Dragon Heart Elixir himself, the Gu King explained gravely. Chapter 995, The Sale. Chapter 995, The Sale. The Juka dragon fruit has only limited uses, especially for a rank 3 Dao master such as him. It is most likely that he wants the fruit to brew a Dragon Heart Elixir. The Gu King continued. The Dragon Heart Elixir does not have much use for common warriors, but it is extremely useful to draconic exotic beasts. This would imply that the Dragon Wing governor possesses the bloodline of a tribe descended from dragons. He needs a Dragon Heart Elixir made of the extract of the Jutsu dragon fruit to awaken the potential of the bloodline he bears. Is that so? Jian Wushuang understood finally as he smiled. Things will be much easier if that's the case. Jian Wushuang turned immediately towards the largest store in the Dragon Wing City. It was called Wan Xian Tower. Soon after he walked in, a steward came to greet him. How may I help you, sir? The steward, draped in robes of silver color, asked with a smile. I have an elixir that I hope you will be able to help me sell. Jian Wushuang spoke indifferently. An elixir? The silver-robed steward's eyebrows cocked, his interest fading rapidly. Of course we can. But the items that we brokered to sell are normally extraordinary and valuable. Would you divulge the nature of your treasure, sir? It is a Dragon Heart Elixir. I wonder if it's valuable enough for you. Jian Wushuang produced a golden elixir as he remarked with feigned nonchalance. Is that an emperor-leveled elixir? The steward got hardly believe his eyes as the sight of the extraordinarily rare elixir. As was the classification of magical weapons, elixirs and concoctions were also divided into different levels. Magical weapons are divided into eternal and emperor-leveled magical weapons, while some elixirs of extreme rarity were classified as emperor-leveled elixirs. However, emperor-leveled elixirs were very much rarer than emperor-leveled magical weapons, making these elixirs the highest grade in addition to being treasures of extreme rarity across the entire Green Fire world. Yet even amongst all other emperor-level elixirs, the Dragon Heart Elixir was still one of the most outstanding of medicinal brews ever. "Do you have any requirements as to the manner of the sale, sir?" asked the steward. "You will only need to spread the word of my offer. Any interested prospects may come to me directly." Jian Wuxia replied, "Very good, sir. And once the deal is done, you'd only need to pay us 1,000 divine gems for our services," said the steward in silver robes. "Good." Jian Wuxia nodded. "I heard that there's a large arena in the city. I shall be staying there during my wait. Anyone who is interested in procuring the elixir can find me there." "Very good, sir," the servant replied. Completing his arrangements, Jian Wuxia headed to the arena. The steward then immediately began spreading the word of the Wanxian Tower's offer of the Dragon Heart Elixir for sale. Still, the Dragon Heart Elixir was hardly an elixir for common remedies and use. Despite its powerful potency, it was an elixir sought only by those few who really required it. Thus, the spread of the news did little to cause alarm in the Dragon Wing City. However, the news of the elixir resonated strongly with one person, the Dragon Wing Governor. Sitting quietly within the fastness of a secret chamber in the governor's mansion was a man with brown hair, handsome and stern, in his armor of black. He was seated upon the floor, cross-legged, and his eyes shut. Strands of energies swirled around the man with brown hair, churning energies channeled by the man that laced with slivers of his bloodline power. His skin burned as his powers stirred, channeling as he mustered his spiritual powers. Sadly, it was a sensation that faded as swiftly as it came. The energies disintegrated into nothingness as everything simmered down. The man opened his eyes, disappointed as his face paled from his exertions. I can't utilize my bloodline power. Even with the help of the secret skill, I still have troubles channeling the power." The brown-haired man shook his head, dejected. "I need a way to draw upon more of my bloodline power. That's the only way. A Dragon Heart Elixir. Only a Dragon Heart Elixir can increase my bloodline power." Alas, long I have labored to accumulate the many ingredients for the brewing of a Dragon Heart Elixir. But still, I lack the Juka dragon fruit? How long do I have to wait until it shows itself to me? The brown-haired man exhaled, his heart full of regrets. The secret skill he had acquired was imperative to his success. When his training was done, he would be able to leap up into a whole new level. Still, he needed strong bloodline power to fully use the skill, a requirement that he lacked severely. "Governor, I've got great news for you." A message came suddenly. "Great news!" The man's face changed at once. Immediately, he asked his servant, "What news? Have you found news about the Juka dragon fruit?"
"No, sir."
"It is news about a Dragon Heart Elixir, right in this Dragon Wing City." It was a warrior, one of his men who had come with the message. Even he was evidently excited about this news. I had just received the news moments before. Someone had requested Wanxian Tower to broker the sale of a Dragon Heart Elixir.
"What?"
The brown-haired man was first stunned before rushes of joy and ecstasy surged within him. "Is it really a Dragon Heart Elixir?" "It is true," his subordinate confirmed. "Ha ha ha. This is a good blessing indeed." The Dragon Wing Governor's eyes flashed with excitement. Much he had spent, efforts, influence, and all other resources he could ever field in his painstaking forage for a Juka dragon fruit, all for the one of brewing a Dragon Heart Elixir. Still, the rare fruit remained elusive. Through thick and thin he had delved in vain. Yet now, someone had come with the offer of selling a dragon heart elixir right before him. "Where is this person now?" the brown-haired man eagerly asked. Finding out that the person with the elixir would be waiting at the arena in the city, the governor set off immediately. The arena of the Dragon Wing City was so huge that it occupied nearly a quarter of the city. A large, empty space reigned in the center of the arena, the ring of sand where the slaves fought to their death to the amusement of the audience mob, who would watch the bloody carnage from their seats at the side of the ring. Thrilled by the fights, the audiences would also place their bets on the bloodbath taking place within the ring. The yearn for thrill and the hunger for bloodthirstiness prevailed over the entire arena. Contrary to the fervor and delirium dominating the arena, Jian Wuxuang lounged in a solitary chamber at the edges of the arena grounds, still clothed in crimson red as he sipped at his wine. A steward came to his door and spoke to him. "We have a patron from guest room 3 who requests your company, sir." "So it begins," Jian Wuxuang mused, the edges of his lips curling into a smile. Chapter 996, The Dragon Wing Governor. Chapter 996, The Dragon Wing Governor. Jian Wuxuang stepped into guest room 3 and found a brown-haired man waiting for him. "A pleasure to make the acquaintance of the Dragon Wing Governor, sir," Jian Wuxuang announced respectfully. "I was right." The Dragon Wing Governor was hardly surprised. "I knew you were coming at me." It was no secret that the governor had spent much to hunt for the Juku dragon fruit. It was obvious of Jian Wuxuang's purpose to announce his offer in the Dragon Wing City. "What's your name? Which population are you from?" asked the Dragon Wing Governor. "My name is Jian Wuxuang. I'm on my own, belonging to no population," Jian Wuxuang replied. "Really? A recluse?" The Dragon Wing Governor smiled wryly. "So, it is true that you do have a dragon heart elixir?" Jian Wuxuang did not reply. Instead, he waved his hand and produced the dragon heart elixir. Recognizing the dragon heart elixir, the Dragon Wing Governor's eyes burned with excitement and yearning.
"I see.
It is true." The Dragon Wing Governor fought to silence his ecstatic anxiousness and stared at Jian Wuxuang. "Anything you require, my friend. Please be forthright. I will see if I can be of service." The governor was a shrewd person, knowing that Jian Wuxuang had surely come to him with the elixir requiring something in return. "In that case, I'll get to the point." Jian Wuxuang smiled. "I have a matter which requires the help of the golden-clothed deacons of the Samsara Temple." Knowing that the number of deacons of the temple would rarely number highly, I knew neither any of them or their whereabouts. But I was informed that you, Governor, has always enjoyed great influence and authority in these lands. Hence I come to you, hoping that you may have the solution to my conundrum. "You want me to introduce you to the golden-clothed deacons of the Samsara Temple?" The Dragon Wing Governor stared at his guest curiously, his brows furrowed with thoughts. "That's right," Jian Wuxuang confirmed. The Dragon Wing Governor fell silent. The governor pondered for some time before he spoke again. Despite their unchallenged rule of the Samsara continent, the Samsara Temple does not interfere in the conflicts and strifes between the numberless populations inhabiting the continent. Even their divisional chapters are few and scarce. The golden-clothed deacons are one of the most supreme keepers of the temple, bearing unmatched powers and authority. Even the stronger populations would hardly dare displease them, for they bear the pride and vanity as being the principal custodians of the temple's might and influence. It is hard for common Dao masters to steal even a glimpse of them. "That is the very reason I came to you," Jian Wuxuang pressed. Jian Wuxuang knew that it was, in essence, impossible for him to secure an audience with the golden-clothed deacons of the Samsara Temple by himself. But were only a handful of golden-clothed deacons in existence. Without many divisional chapters of the temple, it was impossible for him to secure knowledge of their whereabouts. Moreover, Jian Wuxuang had expected that he would hardly be able to secure an audience with a golden-clothed deacon on his own. Therefore, he sought the help of the Dragon Wing Governor. Some measure of reference would surely be useful in smoothing out his endeavors. After listening to Jian Wushuang's request, the governor forced a sardonic smile. Indeed, I do command ample influence around here. But unfortunately, I do not know any of the golden-clothed deacons. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang frowned with dismay. Then again, it is by a stroke of luck that I happen to know the residence of one of the deacons. I can bring you to him, but you'll have to speak to him on your own about your errand, said the governor. So be it. Jian Wushuang replied in short, his eyes flashing with anticipation. Despite not having any relations to the golden-clothed deacon that he mentioned, it was already a great help that he was able to lead him to the deacon. He would then do his utmost to negotiate for himself the deacon's help once they meet. Jian Wushuang, the Dragon Wing governor asked suddenly, "What business do you have with a golden-clothed deacon?" Well, Jian Wushuang paused momentarily before he smiled. I have a kinsman who had become a reincarnator of the Samsara temple 2,000 years ago. Since then, I have lost all news of him. I need the deacon's help to find him. Is that so? The governor nodded quietly. But information on the reincarnators are highly guarded secrets, even in the temple. They are not easily disclosed. I am afraid the price for such tidings can be really costly indeed, assuming the deacon is willing to help you. Yes, many times costlier than a dragon heart elixir. By his words, the Dragon Wing governor had just implied that Jian Wushuang would best need preparations before meeting with the deacon. I know, Jian Wushuang said, nodding faintly. With the interspatial ring that he had received from Dao Yuanzi, Jian Wushuang has a huge hoard of riches and treasures, so great that it was unfathomable to common Dao masters. With such immense wealth in his disposal, Jian Wushuang was confident. He was confident that he would be able to satisfy the price of the deacon, no matter how costly it might be, to secure his help. When do we set off, governors? Jian Wushuang asked. He could not wait to leave. Patience. The governor shook his head with a smile. I was informed that he had left his abode on some business for the temple 2 years ago. He is yet to return. Do you know when will he return then? Jian Wushuang frowned. I will need to ask, the governor said as he immediately sent a message. It was hardly long before he received a reply. One of the deacon's men had just informed me that the deacon will return after 3 years. We will have to wait until then, said the governor. That will hardly be a problem.
3 years it is then.
Jian Wushuang nodded gravely. To him, 3 years was but a mere blink. For 2,000 years, his father had disappeared to become a reincarnator. 3 years would amount to nothing in the face of such time. You're welcome to take up lodgings at my mansion if you are yet undecided on accommodations. We shall see the deacon after 3 years, said the governor. I appreciate your gracious offer, sir. Jian Wushuang smiled. He presented the dragon heart elixir and gave it to the Dragon Wing governor. You seem rather anxious for this. You can have this now. Really? The Dragon Wing governor's face lit up. Never did he expect that Jian Wushuang would give him the elixir despite his promise of leading him to a golden-clothed deacon not yet fulfilled. Such courage! Was this confidence in the character of the governor, or was Jian Wushuang truly assured of his strength that he need not fear of the governor? The name of the Dragon Wing governor rings strongly across these lands. Surely that is worthy for my confidence in you. Jian Wushuang smiled. Chapter 997, The Slave. Chapter 997, The Slave. The Dragon Wing governor argued no more, accepting the dragon heart elixir with amazement. Despite his laborious efforts, he has yet been able to brew his own elixir. With only the simple price of leading Jian Wushuang to a golden-clothed deacon, he had finally possessed the elixir which he had so earnestly yearned for. Needless to say, he was awashed with joy at his long-awaited wish fulfilled. Jian Wushuang wore a thin smile. The dragon heart elixir mattered not to him. It was his father's whereabouts which mattered most. Just then,
What?
something Jian Wuxuang saw made his expression change. He peered intently as his eyes glinted with concentration. The guest room had a clear view of the arena. From the windows of the chamber, he could clearly see two men brutally meleeing at each other. They were slaves of the arena, who were of the eternal realm with considerable strengths of their own. Fighting against each other furiously, the audience mob were stirred into fits of electrifying euphoria and maniacal bloodlust as shouts and yells could be heard over the cacophonous hubbub. To the slaves pummeling at each other, the battle was nothing more than a do-or-die struggle of survival. It was a mere battle to death which Jian Wuxuang had little to no interest nor concern, until he noticed one of the slaves who was clad in a suit of scarlet armor, standing tall at the hulking 3 meters. His figure shone faintly with a mild blush of glow as he had shown himself in possession of great physical strength. His opponent was also a powerful fighter in his own right, having remarkable attacking strengths that was hardly eclipsed by that of the hulking slave. Still, the shorter man lacked the stout defenses of his adversary. The brute strength of the hulking man was greater even than warriors at the pinnacle of the eternal realm. With the help of his massive physical strength, his crude and savage methods of fighting earned him a victory as his opponent fell. All these did not escape the observation of Jian Wuxuang's keen eyes. That huge man, the secret skill he's trained in. Jian Wuxuang's eyes narrowed his eyes, turning instead to the dragon wing governor beside him. "I have another favor to ask of you, Governor," Jian Wuxuang said. "Please, anything you want," the governor answered, looking enthusiastic. "I want that man," Jian Wuxuang said, his finger pointing to the huge man who had just emerged victorious in his fight. "That's easy," the dragon wing governor smiled. He summoned for a steward and whispered into his ears. The steward listened closely and swiftly disappeared through the doors. Within the subterranean catacombs beneath the arena where the slaves are kept, the huge man had just returned from his fight at the ring. He appeared amongst the slaves swarming together and plopped to a seat on the ground. 8 games, 12 more to go. The man hissed with his fists clenched. The slaves were bought at costly prices from warriors who had forced them into bondage and servitude. The slaves would then be thrown into the rings where they have to fight against each other in duels and games bet upon by the mob of audiences, generating huge profits for the management of the arena. Then again, there was but one way the slaves could regain their freedom. The slaves will be rewarded with their freedom if they are able to survive and win 20 games. With his most recent triumph, the huge man has won 8 games, leaving no opponent alive. He will have to secure 12 more victories to secure his much-awaited freedom. Then again, the slaves are mostly paired against opponents who are similar in power and ability. Even though he could almost see the end of his bondage, the huge man who yet doubtful if he could maintain his winning streak. "I wonder if I, Qingbin, will be able to return to my population one day." The huge man sighed quietly to himself. Just then, a steward came over to him. It was the very same who had been bidden by the dragon wing governor earlier. The steward peered intently through every face until he finally found the huge man. "You there. Come with me," ordered the steward sharply. "Me?" The huge man was stunned as he grimaced with despair. "I had just finished one game, and I barely had time to recuperate." "Are they forcing me to another fight again?" "You are not going to the ring. There are 2 masters who requested your presence," the steward explained. "Me? What for?" The huge man was puzzled. "Just come with me, and you'll know," the steward said simply, without explaining even more. Before long, the huge man was led into the guest room where Jian Wuxuang awaited. Stepping into the chamber, he saw 2 men sitting together. "I present to you this slave, Governor, as you requested," the steward announced respectfully. "This man shall henceforth be no longer a slave of the arena," the dragon wing governor ordered. "As you wish, Governor." The steward nodded his acknowledgement and left at once. This is the man you requested, my friend. The governor turned to Jian Wushuang with a smile. Good. Jian Wushuang nodded lightly. The slave was confused, perplexed, and bewildered. I'm no longer a slave. His face was filled with shock and disbelief, feeling slightly disorientated by the sudden turn of events. Never would he be able to believe any of this, if it were not for the governor himself who had announced this through his own lips. Knowing that the arena had bought him at a dear price, he was certain that his freedom would never come easily. Be that as it may, the huge man could sense that the man who had just proclaimed his freedom from bondage was hardly simple and ordinary. He was addressed as governor. Could he be the dragon-winged governor? The huge man finally realized and stared at the two men before him strangely. Who is the stranger beside him then? It seems that the dragon-winged governor holds him with great respect. A man who is only of the eternal realm? I have a few questions for you that I hope you are able to answer truthfully. Should I find your answers satisfying, you will be granted your freedom and you will no longer have to fight in the arena, said Jian Wushuang, studying at the slave before him. As you wish, sir, the huge man replied, growing anxious. He knew full well that it was essentially impossible for him to survive through 20 battles to achieve his freedom. Little did he doubt that he would surely die one day, lying in a pool of his own blood in the ring. Yet, now, before him, stood an off chance that he might be able to escape his enslavement unscathed. I saw you fight, you're strong, said Jian Wushuang. I believe your brute strength comes from the bloodline you inherited and your secret skill. It has been cultivated to the highest degree, no? Yes, I did cultivate a secret skill that enhances physical strength, and the skill is already at the highest level. The huge man nodded at once. And unless I am very much mistaken, the skill that you have trained yourself in is none other than the immortality secret skill, Jian Wushuang revealed sternly. Chapter 998, The Rock Demon Clan. Chapter 998, The Rock Demon Clan. The huge man was shocked to hear Jian Wushuang speaking of the name of his skill. You, too, know about the immortality secret skill? I suppose that confirms my suspicion? Jian Wushuang's face slowly broke into a smile. Not only he knew of it, but it was also a skill he was proficient with. Jian Wushuang had long reached the highest level of the immortality secret skill. This would also mean you know God Hong, asked Jian Wushuang. That was the name of the person who taught Jian Wushuang the immortality secret skill. A long time ago in the ancient world, Jian Wushuang had chanced upon a finger of God Hong. Through the severed finger, he had acquired the immortality secret skill, and he was fortunate to have encountered a fragment of God Hong's consciousness. The friendship they had forged was hardly something that Jian Wushuang could easily forget. Big brother Hong? The man was even more shocked. Big brothers? Jian Wushuang's lips curled into a smirk. I see. You're close. Of course we're close. The man clenched his fists as he related his tale heavily. We're both from the Rock Demon clan. Big brother Hong is the greatest warrior of the clan. He's kind and generous, always keeping our best interests close to his heart. I had once shown a glimpse of my talents a long time ago in the clan, hence he chose me and personally taught me the immortality secret skill. Unfortunately, I grew conceited. I ignored his warnings about the perils outside and wandered out on my own. I was abducted by some stronger enemies who then sold me to this arena. I see. Jian Wushuang cocked an eyebrow with feigned interest in the tale, but quietly, he was thinking to himself. The Rock Demon clan? Is it a junior or a medium population? It does not seem to be a stronger population. Jian Wushuang, said the Gu King's voice rang suddenly. Unless I am mistaken, the Rock Demon clan bears the bloodline of the Rock Demon Giant, an infamous entity in the eternal chaotic world. The Rock Demon Giant? Jian Wushuang nodded and thought. God Hong has shown me a kindness by imparting me his skills. I should visit him someday, as he had bidden me to. Perhaps I can visit his population if opportunity allows. What's your name? Jian Wushuang stared at the huge man before him. My name is Qing Bin, sir, he replied politely. You will remain by my side for now. Once my errand is done here, you will lead me to your population where we will meet with God Hong. Jian Wushuang said. You know Big Brother Hong? Qing Bin asked curiously. In a manner of speaking, Jian Wushuang smiled furtively. Jian Wushuang was relieved with joy. The Dragon Wing governor had promised Jian Wushuang that he will lead him to the golden-clothed deacon after 3 years, and now, his meeting with Qing Bin had provided him an inkling as to where God Hong could be. With the offer of the governor, he and Qing Bin subsequently took up lodgings at his mansion. In a secret chamber of the governor's mansion. I have 3 years until the visit to the abode of the golden-clothed deacon. This is an opportunity for me to continue with my training. Jian Wushuang thought quietly, pleased with the present upkeep. He had immediately returned to the Tang Empire when his physical body was first restored. Hence, he barely had an opportunity to properly train in the secret skills he had acquired. With the restoration of this body, his powers and strength, most notably his ancient god power, had increased substantially that he was now a 3-star ancient god. He could now further enhance his mastery of all of his 3 ancient god secret skills if he so chose. The Star River secret skill was one of the few that strongly required honing. It was known in full as the 34 levels of the Star River. Jian Wushuang had reached the 24th level of the Star River secret skill when he had reached the Eternal Realm, which was synonymous to the rank of the 2-star ancient god. The skill allowed him to amplify his powers by 72-fold. With his present rank of a 3-star ancient god, he could now enhance his mastery of the technique to its highest level. Alone in the secret chamber, Jian Wushuang focused fully on his training. A month fleeted by swiftly and unnoticed. I've reached the 30th level. Jian Wushuang's eyes opened with excitement. With the powers of a 3-star ancient god, he had reached the 30th level of the Star River secret skill. The newly attained heights of the skill would allow his strength to be amplified by 90-fold. This made his powers soar once more as his overall strength experienced a greater improvement. There is still ample room for improvements. I just became a 3-star ancient god. I might be able to reach the 31st or even the 32nd level of the Star River secret skill when I reach the pinnacle of a 3-star ancient god. Jian Wushuang smiled to himself. The Star River secret skill is but merely an ordinary ancient god skill, which doesn't take much effort. The Gu King's voice rang again. Ordinary? This surprised Jian Wushuang. The Star River secret skill was unquestionably the most integral technique in his climb to the heights he had attained today. Most other techniques commonly trained by most other warriors of the Green Fire world would only offer an amplification of strength of up to 10-fold. It was a far cry away from the amplification effects accorded by the Star River secret skill, which offered him a boost of 90-fold. It was hardly an advantage he would rashly dismiss. That is only within the Green Fire world. There are warriors with techniques that amplify their powers up to more than 100-fold in the eternal chaotic world. Really? Jian Wushuang was left speechless, as he could only behold with awe at the unmatched greatness of the eternal chaotic world. You need to focus on developing your very own Tao. With a Tao of your own creation, your strength will soar considerably. The greater is your Tao, so will your strength increases, said the Gu King. I know. Jian Wushuang smiled thinly. From henceforth, he began spending most of his time in the study of sword principles. The assimilation of the acumen and the creation of the strongest sword principle, the scroll which contained 19 other sword principles with his own extraordinary potential and gifts in learning skills of combat were all helpful to him. Before long, he had progressed at an amazing pace. In one of the gardens of the governor's mansion, Jian Wushuang was alone in the garden, performing a stroke or 2 of the swordsmanship he learned absent-mindedly. He waved his blade casually. Every stroke that he cast seemed simple and crude, yet each of them was actually complex and intricate beneath the surface. A figure drifting past the garden witnessed his casual practice. Great finesse. He's very close to developing his own Dao. The Dragon Wing Governor smiled. With a sudden leap, he disappeared from where he stood and appeared before Jian Wushuang. Is it not lonely for your blade without the company of a companion, my friend? How about a friendly duel, since we are both practitioners in the skills of using the sword? The Dragon Wing Governor laughed loud, the echoes of his laughter spreading across the floral bed of the garden. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.